All right, my number of the morning. By the way, Mark, did you do the pop quiz?
I did.
Thank you for that. We're on substitute teacher duty on the pop quiz all week long.
I again forgot about it until right now, so I'm glad that Mark got that finished.
I do have a couple random questions, Mark, if you need any fillers there. Number of the day is 14. I got in the car.
Okay, 14.
Like the count in Sesame Street.
And the number read 30.
Ugh.
So the temperature when I got in the car was 30. It got to 14, probably like 90 seconds into the car ride commute downtown. And I thought, 14, that sounds like the amount of points the Pacers scored in the first quarter last night. 14, that sounds like the amount of turnovers that they had in the second quarter last night. 14 sounds like the amount of straight road games they've lost. Anything else I'm missing on the 14 number?
I would say you're about right.
Is that
there.
how many points they allowed in a row after tying it at 80 last night?
It's just, I think that ended up being 10 in a row, so it was close to your magic number of 14.
14!
But not quite
It's
there.
freezing this morning, by the way.
It's miserable, is it not? God bless you. If you're working outside today, if you're a mailman or a mail woman or you're in construction or whatever it may be that you're outside a lot, God bless you. There's not enough Carhartt to go around on a day like this. Yuck.
I passed the
Also windy as hell, too.
They're building that hospital at 16th and Capitol.
Oh,
I think
yeah.
it is. I mean, oh my gosh, all the construction workers walking in there. Yeah, windy. I mean, it was windy as hell last night.
Our garbage can flew over and everything like that.
Yeah, there were massive sticks and everything in the driveway. So keep an eye out on that. Scott Agnes will try to make sense of it all with us at 8:30. Thad Matta at 9 o'clock. Butler takes on Houston in quite the interesting non-conference matchup. Coming up on Saturday, I got some Colts thoughts for our reversible jacket fans out there that want to cheer for Notre Dame and IU.
Yeah,
show up
of which there are some, I'm sure.
Opposite each other in the bracket on Sunday. What needs to happen, I guess, in championship weekend? But Andy, how do you not start with really? I thought I watched the same movie. I thought I watched that movie in Toronto Tuesday night.
You know, it's interesting. So yesterday, we played the Tyrese Halliburton sound and every show here on the station. I'm sure IBC during their updates, we're all playing, the same sound where Tyrese Halliburton is questioning effort. He's questioning the product that's on the floor and how they need to be better. And, for a superstar early in the season, the things he was saying it was alarming, but it was also pretty good audio that could help move the conversation. And I think, I remember we were planning in the 8 o'clock hour and you looked at me, you're like, I got something here. And, your point was, it's nice that Halliburton said those things, but it gave you and me, it gave us 0% confidence that it was going to change. And you saw that in the first quarter. You saw that in the first half last night. And I don't know. It's worry, it's frustration, it's angst, it's... there still are injuries, and it's a long season. I know that's still out there, but they have almost, and listen, they're going to keep losing some games. As we mentioned yesterday, their schedule gets more difficult. They're just not going to have any margin for error on the back end of this season. And, boy, they are right on the edge of this being a disaster, and you're watching them last night, and I know they made the comeback, and they've done this a couple times, and they've done it back-to-back nights. They make the comeback. It doesn't make you feel better. It doesn't make me feel any better, and you start to look at the lost nature, the lost look on the faces, and it gives you little confidence that they're on the edge of figuring it out and turning it around, and I think that's what's alarming to me the most.
Thank you, Alex Golden. He said 14, the amount of losses the Pacers also have.
How's Alex Golden doing? It's been a couple weeks
in the season.
What's my guy doing?
Great to see Alex Golden chiming in here. I believe he's about to become a father.
I was about to say, they got to be close to bringing a baby into the world. Let's go.
Very close.
Come on.
Just to add to it, when Kristen Airy sounds like someone has spilled the Connecticut water out of his dog's bowls with how he's describing the game last night,
man, you're
never
not wrong.
A good sign.
You're not wrong. On that 10-0 run after they tied the game, and he's like, there was a breakaway layup where he's just like, and another layup for the Brooklyn Nets.
And he sounded like that in the second quarter. He looked at Quinn Buckner in the second quarter and said, "Quinn, I'm at a loss." And we're not used to that from obviously Kristen Airy, or frankly, we're not used to that. Really with how the Pacers have played for so much of last season. So I continue to shake my head. We go back to the physicality comment that Rick Carlisle certainly harped on at the start of the season. And, Andy, yesterday we kind of went through the starting five. I'm like, I don't consider any of these guys individually physical players at all. Is that something that is causing this? I think what is uber frustrating about it all is they have had injuries, obviously, but the big three's been healthy.
Right.
And even Turner has been very healthy.
Oh, yeah. I know.
McConnell.
I know.
I get that Neesmith and Nemhard are key parts, but they're not the engine. They're not the fuel. I mean, how many teams out there would pay to have, guys like Halliburton, Mathurin, and Siakam all healthy throughout these first, 23, 24 games now, into the season. So I think that is where you're frustrated by it. I'm at a loss. There is a little bit of me, and I think this is uber glass half full, that I look at next week's schedule and I say, all right, they've got 4 straight days off. If you want to look at it and you want to grasp at straws, this time last year, Rick Carlisle, and he's brought this up on occasion with us, Andy, remember the Clippers game from last December?
Yep, I know exactly where you're going.
They get shredded on the defensive end of the floor. They were able to have their first practice in quite a while after that Clippers game. And really, I think Rick kind of pointed to that as like a bit of an epiphany to getting them back on track. And if you look at their defensive numbers, starting with that game throughout the remainder of the season, they were much better. So, again, to me, I almost feel like I'm an idiot for even bringing that up. But, if you look at the schedule, they should be able to get back-to-back days of practice on Tuesday and Wednesday. Does that all of a sudden lead to anything? Because I have no other answer.
There is no other answer.
And to me, it's a lot of worry. It's early, yes, but the worry is the game is being, officiated, called, allowed, however you want to describe it, in a different way this season. And clearly the Pacers have not adjusted to it at all. And worry on both ends of the floor. Not just, obviously last night you were able to hold them under 100, but offensively. I mean, you look at the first quarter last night, no turnovers. No turnovers in a quarter. That's a dream. You scored 17 points.
I know. It's not just the defense.
You've got 12 turnovers.
I know.
And you score 18 points. I mean, you got 35 points at halftime in an NBA game.
Well, I go back to this, and I probably should have asked Rick Carlisle this, and on next Tuesday we have him on. I think this is fair if this continues. You don't know what you're going to get quarter to quarter. What you just described are 3 very different teams, KB. I mean, the first quarter you talk about defense, you're not scoring, but you're also not turning the basketball over. Great. Because, after all these games and all these losses, we've been talking about stressing turnovers. Then in the second quarter, you're not scoring, okay? Your defense isn't quite as good, but you turn the basketball over so many times where it's like setting records, where you turn it over so much that you have no chance to win a game. It's like if Anthony Richardson went out there in 2 Sundays in Denver and turns the football over 4 times, the Colts are not going to go on the road and win a game of that magnitude. And then you go to, the effort and guys, he mentioned Jarris Walker. I'm not sure I would give him too much credit, but, then in the second half, you make a run, you're a different team in the third quarter, and then you tie the game, and then you're a different team when you allow them to score 10 straight and 12 of the next 14 points. And so you watch one of these games, and there is zero consistency to what they're doing. And listen, I'm not letting the coaching staff off the hook when I say this, but it has to be maddening as a coach to not know if you're going to get the good defensive team, the bad defensive team, the good offensive team, the bad offensive team, the good Tyrese, the bad Tyrese. Listen, Miles Turner's not good. Eddie Garrison sends us these notes. The Pacers 1-11 when Turner scores 15 points or less. He's got to be better. We've stressed so much Halliburton and others. I
thought Mathurin was terrible last night.
I agree. And you just don't know what you're getting night in, night out from these guys, and that makes it incredibly frustrating.
Shout out Johnny Furphy. Don't know if he's hit puberty yet, but he certainly looked pretty good last night off the bench for the Pacers. Probably the only individual bright spot. We might need the Enya all positive Pacers segment.
Oh no!
People were asking for that 2 weeks ago.
Oh
too.
Boy,
it hasn't gotten better.
Is that a today or is that a tomorrow?
Am I wrong?
No,
I feel like
you're
we
not,
are kind
you're
of
not
approaching
wrong.
that.
You're not wrong. By the way, you know what I liked about Furphy the most? His aggressiveness to go get rebounds.
7 of them, right, last night?
Yeah. I know he can hit some shots and he moves the ball well and he fits into what they want to do. I like Johnny. I like Johnny Furphy. It's ended up being a sneaky, pretty great pick, has it than not, it's not surprising a second-round pick is blossoming for the Pacers. That's what they've been able to do. But, he had a couple where, he moved some of the big boys out of the way and went up and got a rebound. I'm like, good for you, Johnny Furphy. Let's go.
His Kansas Jayhawks go down last night, number 1 and 2 in college basketball. Both lost. That would be Kansas at Creighton. That would be Auburn at Duke. Tonight, Purdue will get their Big Ten slate underway. Back-to-back Big Ten champions. I can't imagine there's been many times in the history of that conference anyone has won back-to-back, let alone 3 in a row. That's what Purdue is trying to go for this year. Again, I rubbed my eyes yesterday morning. I thought I was seeing things when I saw a Purdue football player listed in round 1 of Dane Brugler's mock draft.
Yeah, not good news coming up. Go ahead.
I rubbed my eyes again. Purdue's an underdog tonight?
Oh, are they? Well, I mean, listen, Ken Pom has it a 1-point game.
At Penn State.
Purdue has it a 1-point game where Purdue wins 77-76 with a 51% chance of winning tonight.
Wow.
Yeah. When you think of Penn State, you think of the Crispin brothers, right?
Yeah, I think one of them's on staff.
Yeah, who else would you think of?
Well,
but was it Joe? What was the other one? I apologize.
Joe and John,
Was
right?
it John or was it Jeff?
They got that coach from VCU. I think Ace Baldwin is still there. From what I can tell, they have a 7-footer for what it's worth, so Purdue will see something great. Granted, Purdue's gone small with Miles Colvin and Camden Heide in the starting lineup. A little earlier tip time. This will be 6:30 tonight. Purdue taking on Penn State. That is a road game on that one. Again, Big Ten play starting to obviously begin. Indiana will open up their Big Ten slate on Monday.
I don't know how much college hoops you watched last night. North Carolina stinks. I've seen
Alabama kind of handled them.
Yeah, I mean, they won.
North Carolina.
They won by 15. I think North Carolina now. I know they've had a very, very difficult schedule, but they're 4-4 on the season. I know we're college basketball junkies around here. I've seen enough of North Carolina to know North Carolina's not very good. They're just not.
We've got a great Thursday nighter tonight. It is Packers and Lions here from Detroit. Again, this is important for the Lions. As great as they've been all year, that NFC North is still not just like locked and sealed to them. It'd be wild to think if the Lions slipped up here late in the season, they could go on the road here in round 1 of the playoffs. So it is an outstanding Thursday night football game, and I must say this is my popcorn game of the week.
Oh, is it? Oh, we didn't get the Packers suck either. Thank you, Mark. I mean, come on. Yeah. I mean, immediately when we say the Green Bay Packers, that's what plays in my mind.
I got to let it breathe a little bit.
It's their calling card. Well, if Detroit loses tonight, Philadelphia is winning the NFC. That's what I think might be on the line tonight.
Would a loss put the Eagles as the number 1 seed?
Well, I mean, yeah, I don't know what the tiebreakers would be. I'm saying just my opinion would be that's what we would be talking about tomorrow would be Philly winning I keep saying the NFC. They've already won that. Would be them winning the NFC. And those are the two teams that I think are going to play in the NFC title game. So a game like tonight is a big deal. And I think, on the Packers side, isn't this the conversation of back end of the season, Jordan Love plays like a different quarterback? If he does, that's back-to-back years that has happened. I don't know what to think of Green Bay. I got to be honest. I think they're good. I just don't know how good they are.
I think.
Packers suck.
There you go.
Yeah, just the NFC as a whole. I think Detroit and Philly have obviously given you reason to believe. Who's the 3rd best team in the NFC?
Right. Right now, the 3 seed is actually Seattle, who's won, I think, 4 games in a row. But do I think Seattle's the 3rd best team in the conference? Probably not.
I mean, you'd probably say Green Bay, right?
I would probably say Green Bay. And then, I'd even go Minnesota.
I was going to say.
Yeah, right. I mean, Minnesota's 10-2. It's ugly at times, but they are 10-2.
And certainly Washington has had a moment or two, but it's still a rookie quarterback on that end. Some Colts talk we'll get to. Obviously, not a lot here during this bye week. Coming up a week from Sunday, we've harped on it all. Certainly, I would say, for the past couple of weeks of if any path to the playoffs is going to happen for this team, it's got to be a win in Denver. I know some people have asked about Chris Ballard and will he talk this week. I'll kind of share some thoughts on Ballard's history and chat about that. It is funny when you go back to Sunday how, one drive can kind of cure so much with Anthony Richardson.
Oh, if they lose a game and Anthony Richardson has 6-7 completions on 109 yards, what do you think we're talking about this week?
Like, if that Will Mallory pass is incomplete.
Yeah, which it very well may have been.
Easily could have been. And you punt it away there, and Ramondre Stevenson picks up 2 first downs, and you miss 2 tackles. Boom. Richardson doesn't get the ball back. It's just, and that's kind of how quarterback can be at times in the NFL. One drive like that can totally change the complexion of a game, of a season, potentially. And that's kind of how I feel like Sunday is being viewed. So certainly, again, I guess I bring that up to say there are things to work on. And, he's about to see an environment a week from Sunday in an at-stake game I don't know if he's ever experienced in his football career.
It's the biggest game of his career, is it not? I mean, he didn't play in a big game like this in Florida. They were a 6-7 win football team.
Talking about this with John yesterday. Yeah. It's like C.J. Stroud has gotten 10 of these games.
Oh, yeah.
In his football life. Anthony Richardson's about to get really his first one. I guess you can make the case maybe at Houston in late October, had a big feel to it. That still is early enough in the season that I feel like it's just hard to kind of totally get on board with that. But when December rolls around, it's a different animal. So very, very interested to see how Anthony Richardson handles that coming up a week from Sunday.
Yeah, we'll talk some Colts coming up in about 25 minutes or so. On the other end, your morning check down. What did Rick Carlisle say after last night's disastrous loss? Plus a reminder, Thad Matta joining us, Scott Agnes, Jason Hammer going to be in studio trying to win some money on Thursday Night Football tonight as well. Appreciate you waking up with us. Wake up call. It's a Thursday. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Thad Matta, Butler head coach, coming up at 9 o'clock. Andy Sweeney, go ahead and lead us off for the morning checkdown.
Yeah, you know where we got to start last night. Pacers, again, losers. Now 2-11 on the road this season. It's an unbelievable stat. 99-90 your final in Brooklyn as the Pacers fall to the Nets. We've talked about it. No turnovers in the first quarter. 12 turnovers there in the second quarter. He was asked about that, was head coach Rick Carlisle. Here's what he had to say.
You know, we have real clean quarters, and then we have real dirty quarters with turnovers. And it bit us again tonight. I had a couple clean ones and a couple really bad ones. And so, you know, those are controllable things. We got to keep working on it. Really no excuses for it. We just got to be better.
Yeah, on the night, 16 turnovers, has shot just 24% from three. We mentioned just 35 points in the second half. They tied the game in the fourth quarter, a 10-0 run there by Brooklyn. Not a lot of good last night as the Pacers 99-90 losers yet again.
It was a layup line from the rest of the game once they got it 80-80. A layup line for the Nets, I should say, on that one. Shout out to Johnny Furphy, best game as a pro there. He actually got the start in the second half. No Andrew Nemhard on the second half of the back-to-back in Chicago tomorrow, home to Charlotte Sunday. Then they do get pretty much a full week off here. Upcoming next week, I would say that is much, much needed. All right, tonight over in, what are they, Happy Valley, I guess? I'm like, wait, are they playing this game at the Palestra or not? Purdue is an underdog in their first Big Ten game of the year at Penn State. 1.5-point underdog. Penn State is 7-1 on the year. They really haven't played anybody of note. They lost to Clemson. It's their one loss. They did beat Virginia Tech. They've got a 7-footer, which I think is kind of interesting because, remember, Purdue has gone smaller. Trey Kaufman ran as the 5, and then Miles Colvin and Camden Heide around that. So it's Purdue playing small ball a little bit against the 7-footer.
He's copying Woody, or Woody copied him, I guess.
We're not used to that. Purdue going for their third straight Big Ten title, have won it each of the last 2 years. And remember, they've won it kind of going away. By 3 games each of the last 2 years.
Yeah, speaking of Purdue, did you see their football safety left, Dylan Thieneman? Did you see that? Yep. He left. He has a couple years of, he's got 1 year of 2 years of eligibility if he's going to stay in college. He'll be an interesting one to watch if the new coach can maybe keep him. I mean, he's a big-time player. Certainly. I mean, he's one of their better players, if not their best players. So that news yesterday. College basketball, how much college basketball did you watch last night?
I actually watched a good amount.
Yeah, I mean, a bunch of top 25 teams in action. Creighton, who's had a slow start to the season. They beat Kansas last night. Duke over Auburn. Cooper Flagg 22-11 in that one. Marquette and Iowa State was crazy. That's number 5 versus number 6. Marquette was down big. They went on, I think Cam Jones by himself basically went on like a 10-0 run. It was a tie game with 8-9 minutes to go. It was basically like the Pacer game, and then Iowa State just took control the final 8-9 minutes. So Iowa State over Marquette. Alabama crushes North Carolina. Florida won. Oregon over USC. Danny Hurley, your boy, finally got a win last night. 76-72 over Baylor, I should say. Liam McNeely, 17 points there in the win. I think the funniest thing that happened last night, Pittsburgh, who I didn't know was number 18 in the country, they lost 90-57 last night, KB. They lost by 33 last night to Mississippi State.
I'm going to go over to the jungle for my funniest thing last night in college basketball. Shout out to Paul Cassaro and the Jags. You see they beat Doug Gottlieb and company yesterday.
I did see that, yeah.
84-76. Big second half for Coach Cassaro there as they beat the Green Bay Phoenix. On to Northern Kentucky coming up Saturday, so very nice start there. To Paul Cassaro's first season at IU Indy in conference play. And then announced yesterday officially from the NFL, the suspension for Texans linebacker Azeez Al-Shir has been upheld. So that is indeed going to be 3 games. Trevor Lawrence also announced yesterday that he will be done for the rest of the season. They've mentioned he's battled that shoulder injury.
Is it the AC joint? I think that's what it is. Yeah.
So no shock to see that he is now done for the season. So if you look at it on paper right now, the final 4 quarterbacks the Colts will face this season: Bo Nix, Will Levis, Drew Lock, and Mac Jones.
Does it get worse? I mean, honestly, in the NFL, does it get worse? They can't lose one of those games, KB. I mean, that's the thing. They cannot lose any of those games.
I mean, what a dream scenario to close out the season with those quarterbacks.
It just really is. It's one of those things where if they lose one of those games, it is going to magnify the disappointment of this season. They cannot lose any of those games. Last thing
those
I'll add.
Those guys are like the same person, right? Isn't Mac Jones and Drew Lock the same person?
Here's what I would say.
Will Levis the same person?
At least Will Levis. Will Levis.
At least he puts mayo in the coffee.
Well, he has a couple different wide receivers who are having an okay time.
I thought you were going to say wives.
But I mean, that's just who's he dating? Do we have any idea?
Usually you are all over
Usually
that.
I know. I have no
idea.
idea.
In that
I have
right
no
now?
idea who Will Levis is dating, but I'm sure he's having a good time in Nashville.
Yeah, dust that off when Colts Titans meet here in a little over a week.
Mark, do you want to do your Broadway girl impression?
Oh. Rachel, don't go with him again. That's what it is.
Good enough for me. Deontay Johnson suspended one game there. He hasn't done anything in Baltimore. I think that's one of the bigger surprises in a month plus. All right, coming up on the other side, something I've noticed consistently now the last few games with Rick Carlisle after these Pacer losses. Plus, I know you have a couple thoughts on the Colts as we're on the bye week. So we'll do all of that. Reminder again, Scott Agnes at 8:30, Thad Mott at 9 o'clock. Jason Hammer joins us in studio at 9:30. Appreciate you waking up with us here on this Thursday on The Fan.
Good morning to the Pacers and their struggles coming up here in a few. Colts on their bye week. I know some have asked when will we hear from Chris Ballard at all. Share a little bit on that end. I must say, I know we touched on it during the morning checkdown a little bit there. I'm a bit torn right now on some of the NFL discourse in regards to Azeez Al-Shaair, Texans linebacker, and the hit on Trevor Lawrence. I guess to kind of summarize my thoughts on the suspension, 3 games makes sense to me. Let me go there. He's got a history of some of this stuff. And so I think with not only the history on the field, but frankly the way he acted after the hit and has continued to act on social media, I would say 3 games is very deserving. Let me start there. I think quarterbacks manipulate the hell out of the sliding thing. And they know they can play it to their advantage. You imagine Anthony Richardson in the open field?
Oh, sure.
And doing the fake slide?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, we saw Mahomes doing it on the sidelines.
Yeah, I know Lawrence took a couple steps. It's been really analyzed the last couple days.
And I want to get away maybe from the Lawrence play itself. Because, again, I think that play in Shear's history deserved the punishment that it got. But I think the bigger discussion of quarterbacks and sliding and defensive players, once again, having to all of a sudden at the last split second, change their target area or this and that. I mean, it is difficult as hell. I actually agreed to Tom Brady yesterday. He went on with Colin Cowherd, and he really kind of defended more defensive players than anything with that of, offensive quarterbacks, or obviously quarterbacks who are running, they should have the same rules as a running back running or a wide receiver running the open field, especially if your guys Lawrence can run.
Sure.
Richardson can run.
Yeah,
these guys
Richardson's a huge player.
Right. So that's where I get a little murky on it, Andy. And obviously you want to protect that position, and I get it from a dollars and cents standpoint, but boy, I feel for some of these defensive players and having to make those split-second decisions. And again, I don't want to reference necessarily Sunday's play itself, some of the other moments we see where, are they sliding? Are they not sliding? This or that.
Yeah, this is probably like 4 or 5 years ago. I don't think it was Big Ben. Boy, I don't know why. It wasn't Matt Ryan either. Who was it that did the fake slide and then kept running?
In college, it was Kenny Pickett. Do you remember that?
It was okay.
In their bowl game, correct?
So it was Kenny Pickett in college, which obviously Pitt has very similar uniforms to the Pittsburgh Steelers, I guess a little bit. So it was Kenny Pickett in college who did it. It wasn't him in the NFL.
Yeah, ACC title game, and this was
the
ultimate fake slide.
Oh, it's a great play.
And he runs for a touchdown.
It's a great play.
And you saw it in the Colts game on Sunday. Remember, they went back and they reviewed the Drake May. Did he give himself up early? Does the forward slide, is that different than the baseball slide? And I guess the baseball slide, I'm saying kind of feet first. So I actually agreed with Brady. I thought he took the stance of, hey, it's tough for defensive players. He referenced a little bit of, his own. He used a 2001 game. Nate Clements, he said, was the cornerback where, all of a sudden he got back to the offensive huddle and his teammates were like, dude, you got to protect yourself when you slide.
Yeah, you're too valuable.
Right. So I think quarterbacks, they just need to, I don't know if you can punish quarterbacks for doing the hesitation or the fake slot. Is that unsportsmanlike? I don't know if I'm ready to say that, but I guess to summarize my general thoughts, Andy, I think it's very difficult for defensive players to know when with quarterbacks, especially Drake May can move.
Oh yeah, he's a good player.
He got a 40-yard scramble against the Colts. So
we said a couple weeks ago with Mahomes did the fake run out against the Niners, and then the defender stopped and he scooted for another 20 yards. It's like they don't want to get the personal foul penalty, but you can't do that.
I think the NFL, the way they penalize this, I think they've got a lot of it out of the league. Don't you feel that way? That's why a guy like this gets 3 games.
Yeah, I would agree.
Because we're just not seeing it nearly as much. Now, I think everybody overreacted just a little bit on Sunday. Sunday and Saturday, last week in college football, people were pent up last week in football. You had a fight in every one of these rivalry games, did you not? You even had, who's the player? We never even talked about this, Mark. Who's the Notre Dame guy that punched the USC guy right in the face? He
Notre Dame got so lucky.
Come on, Kevin, get your guy in order.
Did you see this?
Lucky.
He punched him right in the face, which is always funny because it's got to hurt your hand to punch a face mask as hard as you can.
God, that was so dumb. And he's one of Notre Dame's best players.
Everyone had an issue in the NFL and college football last weekend. Everyone had everyone was a pain in the ass to everybody else.
Because everybody was hanging out with their families on Thanksgiving.
That's what it was.
Arguments at the dinner table,
Yeah.
so they took it out on
politics.
Saturday.
All right, we're going to take it out on the flag at the 50-yard line.
Uncle was talking about, Uncle Bob was talking about the election for 2 hours at Thanksgiving dinner. Yeah, you guys might be spot on, but I'm with you. Listen, I'm probably more of it could have been a 2-game suspension, but it's much like Miami not being in the college football playoff. I'm not crying for the player, and I'm not crying for Miami not making the college football playoff. Is that fair?
His history is what led it to be 3 games.
Yeah.
Like, this is not, I'm trying to think of a Colt player. Like, I mean, EJ Speed, frankly, has got a little bit of some history with this. It'd be different if it was, I don't think like Zaire Franklin maybe has much of history, I guess, if I could bring it back to Colts terms.
It's like a Draymond Green of the NFL, like a repeat offender where it's like, even what would necessarily be like maybe a lesser punishment for others, it's a stiffer punishment because of who did it.
Last thing on this, I forget. I think it was ESPN Radio. I was listening to something, and they were making the point. It's a good point, and we've talked about it even with Anthony Richardson that AR's been injured, and it's not like he's been rocked by a guy that is way bigger than him, right? It's not like Dexter Lawrence or Mason Crosby landed on him, and that's how he injured his shoulder. And I think that's the thing, like. Trevor Lawrence and some of these quarterbacks, Anthony Richardson, they're bigger than the defenders hitting them now.
Right.
It's not the day and age where all the quarterbacks look like, and no offense to him, I don't know why I thought of him, Doug Flutie. I don't know why I went to Doug Flutie there.
He was pumping up the crowd on Sunday Night Football.
Isn't that? It's a little bit of a musty reference, is it not?
Oh, sure.
I mean, when I thought of a small quarterback, I don't know why my brain immediately went to Doug Flutie.
Didn't he kick the extra point off the ground?
I think he did.
Yeah, the drop kick. I think he did.
By the way, I could have sworn I saw a highlight in the state finals. Maybe Rakestraw can talk about this tomorrow, where one of the teams, they punted it like they were kicking a field goal.
Really?
They had a holder for the punt.
Is he allowed to do that?
I was stunned.
Yeah, it must be a loophole. That guy's like the coach is like the Belichick.
I'm like, who needs to debate seeding the IHSA football playoffs or class basketball? We can debate should punts be field goals. It was why we're gonna ask Rakestraw about it tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll
maybe
have
no
him
one
on.
cares. So
no, we care.
Damn
it, we care.
Hopefully
it's our show. It's our show. We care.
With us, I thought at times last night, Chris Teneri sounded like his dog's bowls of Connecticut water had been spilled. He just sounded dejected. He sounded like a man with no answers. Frankly, at some points, Quinn Buckner shockingly sounded like a man with no answers. I think we're at a loss right now, Andy, to describe what the Pacers, or maybe how many issues they have. That might be the better way to put it. The issues are offense, defense, Halliburton's consistency, health. What am I missing?
You mentioned Halliburton's consistency, playing bad on the road. In some of these games, Miles Turner isn't scoring the way you need him to. It's back-to-back games with Siakam.
Last night. I thought Siakam was terrible the night before. It's just, Andrew Nembhard, okay, he's not playing in the second night of a back-to-back. It's just so many questions. And I do feel this way about the Pacers. Last night was kind of a reminder of it. And this is going to sound, I think, a little stupid, so please hear me out. I think when you compare the Pacers to the other 29 NBA teams, Andy, they're not very athletic.
Okay. I had not thought of it like that. Okay.
Does that make sense, though?
Yeah,
when
I understand what you're saying.
When you compare them to the other NBA teams, I don't think they have the length, the size, the physicality, the athleticism in general as others do. And I think if the game is going to be this emphasis on physicality and things are going to be allowed, then a little bigger, stronger, faster is going to win out. Obviously, the Pacers have some athletic guys, certainly. But I think if you look at their starting five, for example, I don't know if there's some great skill with that group. Boy, if you're playing a one-on-one game,
right.
They certainly have some very talented dudes.
I look at Walker and I look at Matherin, and I'm not sure I look at anybody else when you start talking about that.
And even Matherin's given up height, and I don't think he uses his athleticism very well in the defensive end of the floor, and I think that has shown up here this season.
Listen, part of this is injuries, and I say part of it. A lot of this is probably injuries, but I think both things can be true. I think we can say that the injuries have bothered, have hampered this team. I think that is fair. But the way that they are playing against bad teams, back-to-back nights, the Detroit game on a Friday night where we're lighting up downtown and it's a great atmosphere in Gamebridge, they're also playing bad basketball against some pretty bad teams. So both things can be true. They can be injured. It's no doubt affected the season, but they also have had the main three superstars and Miles Turner have been, I mean, they've been here. And then you throw in Benedict Mathurin. You've got a chance to see Jarris Walker. So you can use that as an excuse, but not too much. And I just, watching them last year, the way they played offensively put teams on their heels. It made teams that didn't want to play their way. This was a conversation in the next series. It made teams that maybe didn't want to play the way and the style that the Pacers play offensively. The Pacers got teams to play their way. It doesn't feel like they're dictating much at all. And again,
they were under 100 again last night.
And again, this is not against really good defensive teams. This is against the Wizards and the Pistons and the Nets and teams like that. So, listen, you asked the question, and the answer is yes. You asked it last night, do the Pacers stink? Right now they do. It doesn't mean that's going to be the case in a month. It doesn't mean that they're going to end up missing the postseason.
Right.
I'm not willing to say I'm not digging a grave for them yet, even though they have no doubt put themselves behind the eight ball. I'm not digging a grave for them, but do they stink? The answer right now is they do, and they look lost. And I teased this. I want to go back. Just last thing on this. Rick Carlisle. And we'll keep playing the clips during our morning checkdowns. I don't know how much you listened to him last night. It's only a 5 or 6 minute press conference. He is trying to he's the good teacher right now. He's the good cop. He's the good guy. He is trying to be as positive with this group as he can be. And I get it. I'm not necessarily saying I don't like it, but when you embarrass yourself in back-to-back nights, fans also don't want to hear positivity. But I think it shows what he's dealing with, that he's got to be overly positive with this team when Rick Carlisle probably doesn't want to be too positive right now.
I was going to say, we have heard him go both ways. He's been bad cop. He's been good cop.
Yep.
And I've found it interesting that both of these nights, to your point, Andy, he has certainly been more of the good cop post-game. I think you have to say that offensively, when you have Mathurin and Siakam, the ball sticks more with those two. It does not have this, free-flowing and Globetrotter-esque, feel to it that at times it did. I don't know if Nembhard, back would help that, getting another ball handler. Again, if you look at Nembhard so far, the 2 games in his return, I thought really, really good and really, really bad. He didn't play last night on the second night of a back-to-back. Do we start to see him? Again, they'll play Friday, Sunday, then they won't play again until next Friday. So, Nembhard, you would think, will start to get up in that minute count. Again, doesn't sound like Aaron Nesmith's return is anytime soon. They will get, you would assume, multiple days of practice next week. Is that going to be some epiphany like it was last season? I think that's a really optimistic way to view it, but they haven't really had many practice days here over the last few weeks. But yes, when I tweeted it out, did the Pacers stink? If you were going to say, Kevin, answer that question for yourself. Yes.
Yeah, right now they do. There's no doubt about it.
And again, the issues are long. And I have said this for weeks now. I am not one that and I know that they threw up the graphic last night, and it is a notable graphic. Games missed and where they're at from a health standpoint. Yes, but that's not telling the full story.
It's not.
That is a cop-out.
It's half of the story.
That is 1,000% an excuse to label that as a complete blanket statement on this 9-14 start. Because when they were really healthy to start the season, they were losing some of these games. When they had chances against teams that were very injured, they were losing those games. And their health has been, certainly, depth-wise, hurt. But how many teams right now would say, hey, 25 games into the season, your 3 best players will be healty for every single one of them? And that's what they've had.
Let me ask you this. How much do you buy into Johnny Furphy? You watch him.
Yeah,
I think he knows what the hell he's doing out there.
Sure.
I think he's knocked down shots, and I think Rick Carlisle likes the way that he plays.
Well, he does a little more than just stand in the corner and hit a 3. Which I felt like I noticed in Vegas a little bit of like, oh, wow, Johnny Furphy's not just a standstill shooter. He cuts. He's aggressive. He does some dirty work. I mean, when you think of shooters, You don't think of them doing dirty work.
No, you think of go stand in the corner and get ready. Yeah.
And, like,
he had a big block the other night.
You know, he had 7 rebounds last night. He gets in there on the offensive end of the floor from a rebounding standpoint. I mean, it was so bad last night. Furphy started the second half. And I thought, at first, again, it was another rubbing of the eyes moment for me. Like, wait, is Furphy starting? And then I thought, well, I guess that kind of makes sense.
I mean, why would he not? He's knocking down shots. He's being aggressive, like you said.
How bad you were in the second quarter. So
I wish I had his hair, man.
Yeah.
Dude, he's got it. He's killing it, man, with that hair. Wish I had that hair.
The thing is, he doesn't even look like he's 19. He looks like he's 13.
No, I think Carlisle said after the game he looks like a middle schooler. I don't know if that's the case, but he does look like a young guy.
For West Lane.
Let me ask you, this may be a stupid question. You feel better in
Stony Brook.
You feel better in 2 years about Johnny Furphy or Jarris Walker?
You need more from Jarris Walker right now.
I mean, you do, no? I mean, this is his big opportunity. And, I mean, we've come in here and we haven't really talked about Jarris Walker. He plays 14 minutes.
Play with physicality.
Doesn't make a basket last night.
Guys that are, again, on a team that I think is not one of the more athletic bunches in the NBA, you would think he would fit more of that mold. But he certainly has not done that. Coming up in a few, what needs to happen for Notre Dame, Indiana in the playoff? Share some thoughts on that.
By the way, we have a sound of the day today. Did you happen to see any of your boy Brian Kelly yesterday whining about NIL during LSU's press conference for National Signing Day? He almost messed up, so we may play that for sound of the day today.
Stay away from the Kelly, just the easy layups to totally rip him. I'm going to try to be the bigger man here. I mean, Notre Dame's got a playoff game. I can't be worried about Brian Kelly and
but you're a fan.
Childish, just pathetic comments.
Mark,
he stinks.
There it is. Mark, how many times did you tell Brian Kelly to kiss your ass this year? 4? At least 3, I feel like. Yeah, the over-under's at least 3.5, 4.5.
Him and Bally's have to be neck to neck.
2.5 on that end.
Bally's did have a thing that said, we're experiencing technical difficulties. It was 2 nights ago, and I thought, you know what?
I was going to text you guys, but I thought it might just be a me thing.
No, it was everybody, but I thought, you know what? This might not be the worst thing in the world. They're down 18.
Subscribers collectively said no bleep.
I swear it went off for like 3 straight minutes.
Oh, yeah, it's 2 nights ago. Last night, at least I didn't have any issues last night. But 2 nights ago, again, we're down 20, and you're missing shots.
This is how bad it is for the Pacers right now. It went away for 3 straight minutes, and I thought, man, maybe I just missed it, and Carlisle took another timeout.
Boy, it felt like he took 3, like, back-to-back last night.
I'm always nervous he's going to trip somebody because he's so far out on the floor taking the timeouts, and dudes are running back. I'm like, he's going to run into somebody.
Yeah, the NBA coaches have to do the big walking circle when they take a timeout. Didn't Popovich always did that? Eric Spoelstra, I think.
Spoelstra does it, yeah.
Mazzulla is
is he the best at it?
Spoelstra and Mazzulla are the kings of it.
I need to pay attention to Mazzulla because when I think of the walkout in the big circle, I think of Eric Spoelstra. Didn't he call a timeout that he didn't have like 2-3 weeks ago and it cost the team the game? He's a very good coach, but
yeah, he did. Zach Lowe, well thought of NBA writer, was at ESPN for a long time. He chimes in on the Pacers, which it's kind of rare to get the national voice on it. He tweets this: Pacers shockingly disjointed on offense, out of rhythm in the half court and transition, bizarre turnovers, guys not getting the ball in obvious situations when they should, general uncertainty, issues beyond Halliburton's up and down play, plus absence of connector types in Nembhard, Neesmith, Shepard. I kind of nod my head at all of that.
Yeah, is that it? What do you list 7 things? Yeah, is that all, Zach?
Character limit was the only reason why he probably stopped there.
You don't think Zach Lowe doesn't pay for the $20 a month or whatever it was to get all the characters?
If we get Notre Dame IU in round 1, should fans have to declare their allegiance before the game starts?
Yes. Yep. IU basketball fans we'll have a ceremony downtown where you can bring your Notre Dame football gear and you can burn it. Like people burn jerseys after their favorite athlete leaves them, like LeBron James.
All right, you either wear the Bob Knight shirt or the Lou Holtz shirt.
Yeah, it's one or the other.
You can't, I know it's going to be cold in South Bend, but you can't go multiple layers for that.
No more listening to Lou Holtz's podcast,
the
okay?
reversible jackets, nope. The starter jackets, you got to pick one side. You can't flip.
Oh, goodness. We'll talk about that coming up on the other side. Do you want to see Notre Dame and IU face off in the college football playoff? How would that happen? Plus, an NFL analyst yesterday basically slighted the city of Indianapolis. We'll talk about that as well. 8 o'clock hour around the corner. Scott Agnes at 8:30 right here on The Fan.
Butler head coach Thad Matta going to join us here in an hour. Butler's won 6 straight. They're off to take on Kelvin Sampson and Houston coming up. Well, a lot of wins right there between Kelvin Sampson and Thad Matta. I don't know how many vacated for Kelvin Sampson, but certainly
That's a great
lot
question.
for Thad Matta.
I got a question for Thad Matta. You tell me if you think this is silly. So obviously he plays in the Big East, and they're not playing UConn, but they eventually will play the insane man in Dan Hurley and UConn. I'm wondering, Thad Matta has obviously, like all coaches, screamed at the refs. You can think back to a couple different times, for sure, his time at Ohio State. You know, everyone's acting like Hurley yelling at these refs mean the refs won't like him. I wonder if Thad ever ran into that, especially at Ohio State. Or is that not true at all? That, you know, you yell at a guy on a Tuesday and 3 weeks later he's calling a game and, you know, there's no hard feelings. You think that's a good question? Come on, Thad Matta's been ran out of gyms before at Ohio State.
Yeah, the old sideline decorum. I know, it is fascinating. Hurley reacted last night. I thought he was going to hit that player on his team. He was celebrating him, but I thought at one point he was just going to punch him in the face.
I can't remember the player, but I guess it's a kid that's been struggling. He got benched in Maui. Yeah, McNeely was pretty good last night, too.
He is very good. Liam McNeely,
he's pretty good.
Pretty good basketball player. Purdue, a shocking underdog tonight at Penn State. They'll open up Big Ten play. 6:30 tip for the Boilers in that one. These college football championship games this weekend, the spreads are all so close. We'll have Jason Hammer join us coming up at 9:30. Oregon, 3.5-point favorite over Penn State. Texas, 2.5 over Georgia. SMU, 2.5 over Clemson. Boise is only a 4-point favorite.
I saw that.
9 championship games, none of the spreads are more than a touchdown.
And it's unbelievable, too. I mean, SMU and, like, legit SMU, I still think has major pressure on themselves to win just because you don't want to leave it up to the committee to pick you over an Alabama. Sorry, should they? Yeah. I mean, will everybody yell and scream and cry and love on some SMU even if they lose on Saturday to Clemson? Yes. But, you know, in the end, you don't want to leave that up. It's like being a bubble team in the NCAA tournament. You don't want to leave it up to the committee to have to, you know, put you in over somebody, a brand like Alabama. And then Boise State, boy, there's a lot of pressure on a couple of these schools. I mean, Boise State loses, they're not going to be in the college football playoff. They're out. If SMU loses, there is a chance that they have to sit out this year. There's a chance they still may make it, but I wouldn't put it up against Alabama. No, wouldn't do it.
So what needs to happen for Notre Dame and Indiana to face off in round one? Again, the latest bracket has Notre Dame hosting Alabama.
Right.
That is a 6-11 matchup. Indiana is on the road as the 10 seed taking on Georgia. So right now, Notre Dame the 6, Indiana the 10. Well, if you look at it, that just needs one shift, one way or the other, to match up. If Notre Dame falls to the 7, they would host Indiana. If Indiana fell to the 11, they would go to Notre Dame in the 6-11 matchup. So, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm sure I'm speaking to our audience here with, you know, multiple green, blue, and gold shirts and cream and crimson shirts in their closet. You think they go green on top to start the game and maybe cream and crimson underneath just in case?
There was a guy last night, I need to find the picture, in the North Carolina-Alabama basketball game that had a sweatshirt down the middle.
No.
Alalina, I think, is what the way he had it written out.
That's pathetic.
It was half Alabama, half North Carolina.
Makes me want to puke.
That doesn't fit at all. At least Indiana, like, you get it, right? At least you get it that IU football's been so bad that if you're an IU basketball fan, and no offense, you know, Notre Dame basketball has actually been much better than IU football. So you could at least kind of understand it. But where the hell do we get North Carolina and Alabama? You can't do that. That's not a mix that's acceptable. Come on.
Gross.
Just get it Indiana, Notre Dame, and have it go Indy Dame.
Mark, stop.
I'm just saying, Kevin. It's possible.
I had to deal with this a lot when I worked in Louisville. You know, Kentucky fans, there's an old guard.
House divided, the flag outside, Kentucky and Louisville.
No, that's not it.
No.
There were Kentucky fans, old-timers, that would be Alabama football fans and Kentucky basketball fans.
What?
It's a sick segment. Oh, there's some sick SOBs. Oh, yeah. It's an old guard, but it's out there.
Well, for that guard that is here in the state of Indiana, which certainly there are many of them, I don't act like there's not. I think it's as simple as this. I think it's just a Georgia win. If Georgia beats Texas, Georgia now skyrockets. They go from hosting as the 7 seed to top 4 seed, and they get a bye. Okay? So that would
probably.
Well, yeah. If you win the SEC, you get a bye.
So they would then say we're going to flip, or we're going to move Texas down to like the 5 seed,
correct,
or something like that.
So that
and now Georgia's going to end up being like the 3 or the 4 or something.
Right.
Right.
So Georgia would skyrocket to the top 4.
Okay.
They would get the SEC's automatic bid and a bye.
Right.
Texas then falls into the round 1 games, and I don't think Texas would fall that far.
They would still host.
I think they would host, and I think they'd be a 5 or a 6. Well, right now, Notre Dame is the 6. So if Texas is the 5 or the 6, Notre Dame then goes 1 rung down on the ladder. They become the 7, I guess, in this sort of hypothetical.
You don't think they would go up then?
I don't think Notre Dame would jump Texas.
Okay, that was going to be my question. Does Notre Dame jump Texas?
Don't they keep on saying these conference championship games aren't going to have a significant impact? They have to have some impact because Georgia would become the automatic SEC bye team. But for the team that loses, I don't think they're going to be punished in that significant of a manner. Yeah, Texas right now is the number 2 team in the whole.
And they've loved Texas. The committees love Texas. This would be my mini rant. I was listening to Greeny on the way home yesterday, and they were talking about this. We're okay with the winner gaining something in the college, in these conference championship games, but we don't want to see the loser penalized.
That's pretty much what the committee has told us.
Yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about that. I understand it. I get it. I'm not saying I disagree with it, but I also don't feel like I totally agree with it. Does that make sense?
Well, be a Penn State fan Saturday night. Be an SMU fan Saturday. Be a Georgia fan Saturday. I mean, if you're let's play out those 3.
Okay,
Penn State's in the game. IU's not in the game. Georgia's in the game. Alabama and Tennessee are not in the game.
Right.
SMU's in the game. Miami's not in the game.
Right.
Like the only thing, I mean, they all can, yes, they can win their conference championship games, but if they lose and those other teams are sitting on their ass because they didn't make it here, why should we be punished in a significant manner?
It's at some point it's going to happen. The question I would have, and listen, we'll get back to Notre Dame and Indiana because that's what we need to talk about. But if there's an injury in one of those games, if SMU loses by 7 and their quarterback gets injured, the way Jordan Travis did with Florida State. I mean, Florida State got kicked aside by the college, and I know it was 4 teams, but they got kicked aside and penalized big time for Jordan Travis having that injury, and he injured himself against what was it, Mercer, Holy Cross? I mean, it was a bye. It was a bye game. It was a bye.
Was it really Holy Cross?
I don't know who it was, but Mark, can you look that up? It was a bye. It was a game where you bring a team in and you pay them $1.5 million to lose 44-7.
So I think if Georgia wins, they would get the bye. AJ points out here if Penn State loses to Oregon, Notre Dame likely jumps them.
I was thinking of that too.
I think they should, but again, I mean, if Penn State loses a 3-point game to the number 1 team in the land on a neutral field, are you really going to punish them that much? That's where I don't know if that's a given.
If they fall at all, they're being punished. Correct. It's a matter of how much.
There's a big difference between being the 5 seed and the 6 seed.
Big time.
Look at the bracket. Right now, Penn State is the 5, gets Arizona State.
And Boise.
And then Boise on a neutral field. Notre Dame is the 6, gets Alabama, and then SMU on a neutral field. That's a big difference to me.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. If Arizona State won this weekend and Boise lost, how would that also shuffle things at all? And, of course, Notre Dame, bought into, your boy Swerbick bought into, hey, we can't, they just got to get rid of the conference affiliations as the top 4. I was complaining about this during the break. It's confusing as hell to talk about because the college football playoff rankings are not the seeds when you get to the bracket. Yeah, I mean, for us to talk about this, it's like you need ESPN.com up so you can see what the rankings are, and then you need your laptop out so you can see what the actual bracket is. I mean, it's ridiculous. Notre Dame is the 4 in the college football rankings, but they're the 6 in the bracket. I mean, how confusing could it be?
I've just tried to speak in bracket terms because I just think it's confusing as hell, to your point. So I guess lastly on this, if you want a Notre Dame IU first-round matchup, and if I remember correctly, I believe visiting fans get about 3,500 tickets, I think it is, to the first-round game. I think if Georgia wins, and again, Penn State probably needs to be somewhat competitive with Oregon, and then it probably is safe to say SMU would need to win. SMU would stay at that 8 spot.
Right.
Clemson is definitely out.
Yeah, SMU would host. They would be the 3 or the 4.
If SMU lost again, could that move IU a little bit? But I think if Georgia wins, they would get the bye, and I think you could get a Notre Dame-Indiana matchup in round one.
Okay, is that what we want? Because that means one local team is done.
Yeah, I know. Maddie was asking me this the other night.
Because that's a difficult one.
That'd be awesome, Notre Dame and IU. I'm like, well, I mean, do you want to be optimistic? Do you want Notre Dame and IU both to try and advance?
See, Mark, here's the fun part. All year we've had fun with Kurt Cignetti. Mm-hmm. If Kirk Cignetti walked into Notre Dame, walked into South Bend, football Jesus and everything else, and won that game, Cignetti would be walking around talking all that bleep. Suddenly it wouldn't be so funny anymore, would it?
Could be imagine.
There's a DX crotch chop on the way out.
Suddenly doing the crotch chop,
it'd be one of the more
it's not funny anymore, is it?
It'd be one of the more humbling days in my sports fandom history.
Then the next day, obviously, Freeman takes over the Chicago Bears.
Stop
you know?
it.
No, I don't want that either.
Things start to fall apart. Boosters are like, should we bring Brian Kelly back? He's struggling at LSU.
Well, if you can bring Brian Kelly back, okay.
Let's get Ryan Day.
Oh, yeah. Ryan Day goes, hey, I have one of the best jobs in the country. Why would I leave?
What about the question I threw to Pat Forty yesterday?
Okay.
Any of these three you want to see implemented? Do you want the bracket to be reseeded?
I'm fine with not doing that. I would agree with Pat, so I'm a no on that.
Do you want intra-conference round one games? In our current bracket setup, we have none of them. In all the previous ones, we've had them. And by that, I mean this. It's probably easiest if I just share them. Our four first-round games in this current bracket are Penn State, Arizona State, Ohio State, Tennessee, Notre Dame, Bama, Georgia, Indiana. Again, we're very close to getting, Penn State, Indiana, or, Georgia, Tennessee, those sorts of things. Do you want intra-conference games? I don't know, frankly, if they can totally avoid it. But do you want that to be on the ban list?
No, I don't think it should be on the ban list. I'm fine with it not being. I'm fine. If Indiana ends up playing Ohio State, we've talked about this. And we asked Pat Forty this yesterday. He kind of thinks, hey, if I had a choice, if I'm Indiana, between Georgia, and we used, obviously not Notre Dame, we used Georgia and Ohio State, he said, I'd rather play Ohio State. I know they know each other in the Big Ten, but Ohio State's psyche might be bad after what happened last week against Michigan. So I'm fine with it. I just think, and I know why they did it. Listen, the SEC and Big Ten, this is my theory. The SEC and Big Ten, especially Greg Sankey and the SEC, to throw a bone to these other conferences and the group of five, the teams like a UNLV or a Boise State, okay, they threw them a bone and said, you guys can get the first round bye, you can host, you can be in the top four. But by doing that, they've made it so damn confusing where the rankings and the projected college football playoff bracket don't match up. That, to me, is what just needs to change. Just move the conference stuff out of the way. If, they've already done it anyway a little bit by if Arizona State wins, Arizona State's not going to be a top 4 seed. They're going to be the 12 seed or the 11 seed or the 10 seed, whatever it may be. And they're ranked, Arizona State's 15th in the rankings. They just need to do away with that. That would be my main gripe thus far.
What about the buys? Do you think we should give the Big 12 and the ACC or the group of five, in this case with Boise State, automatic buys?
No, I don't think so. But again, they did that.
So that's
to
giving
appease,
the Big 10 and the SEC more.
They did that. I still believe that the Big 10 and SEC did some of this to give just a little bit so they each could get 4 teams in and keep everybody a little bit quiet by giving some food scraps like you feed your dog after a big meal. You have a big steak. You feed some of the fat and gristle to a dog. That's kind of what they're doing to the Big 12 and ACC, to try to keep them happy and quiet while the Big 10 gets 4 teams in the SEC if they get Alabama and they get 4 teams in the college football playoff. Do you disagree with that?
I want to have multiple conferences involved, and by that I mean I want to have more conferences involved than just the Big 10 and the SEC. So I probably am okay with it, but damn, you compare Penn State's resume right now to Arizona State or Boise State's resume.
I know.
And it's kind of difficult to sit there and justify it. But who knows? Maybe some people say, no, I'd rather have the home playoff game. You know how great that is for our university? You know how much money that brings in? I mean, you all of a sudden have bought 80,000 people back to your, more than that, 100,000 people back to your campus in a random December weekend.
Oh, I mean, can you imagine Tennessee? I mean, we both have been to Knoxville. Imagine if they host Ohio State.
Right.
On a Friday night,
right.
There at Rocky Top. I mean, just imagine.
Notre Dame, Bama in the snow in 2 weeks.
Can you imagine?
Inject into the veins. That's a Dane Brugler mock draft.
Let me ask you this. If Indiana went to Notre Dame, how much red is there. We have seen other fan bases take over. Like, I think Alabama would take over South Bend.
I'd like to think not as much as we have seen. Like Notre Dame, Ohio State last year, shockingly, was not as much Ohio State as I thought it would be. But to your point, Notre Dame, Georgia, whatever, handful of years ago, a ton. I mean, hell, even Notre Dame, Louisville the first time.
Man, Louisville bought a lot of people there. I remember that.
I would like to think the rich Notre Dame people would show up.
They would step up and pay the $500 a ticket.
I mean, again, you're crossing something off the bucket list in terms of it's the first time ever playoff game. And again,
it's
Notre Dame changed their academic calendar at the start of the year for this. They bumped finals back to have their student body there. I mean, that's a lot of planning that's gone into this. Notre Dame talked a lot back in the offseason.
Yes, they did.
Unfortunately, after Northern Illinois, when it looked like it was not going to happen, they were able to back it up. Just a reminder, Sunday at noon. So NFL Countdown will be abbreviated. You'll get the bracket hopefully by 12:15.
You talking about finals, man. It makes me sweat. It gives me chills thinking of having to go through a finals week. Well, yeah, I agree. One thing I wanted to mention, staying on this same vein, and again, Scott Agnes going to join us here in about 15 minutes. Thad Matta going to join us at the top of the 9 o'clock hour. I know JMV talked about this yesterday. It's funny. So yesterday, near the end of the show, we were talking about the get-in prices for the Big Ten championship game. And obviously, when you have Penn State in Oregon, you have an Oregon fan base. It's, across the country. And you have two fan bases that are already in the college football playoff. And, both of them hopefully, are thinking they're going to win and play multiple games. So there's going to be some travel and some expenses involved. And one of the fallouts is the prices. The prices to get in to the Big Ten championship game are rather low. We talked about, $10, $12, $15 if you want to sit up in the $500 and $600 level. And then even, behind the bench, even these lower level $100 or 100 level tickets. I mean, there's some 100 level tickets that are $60 to sit in the end zone, $150 to sit at the 30, 35 yard line. So, we talked about that in the 9 o'clock hour, and then we got off the air, and at like 10:15, Ross Dellinger, is he with Yahoo now? I think he is. Ross Dellinger, who's one of the big writers, obviously, for college football, he put that out there. He put the prices on StubHub for the Big Ten championship game, and, I noticed that. And then Albert Breer, who does he work with now? Is he just a Boston guy?
I think SI still.
Is he still SI? Albert Breer, who is a national NFL writer, he tweeted the following yesterday.
Not sure if his ego would fit in this room.
All right, so here we go. He tweeted, "This is another reason why the Big Ten title game should be in Chicago. It's a massive alumni base for the majority of Big Ten schools, like Atlanta is for SEC schools. If you have it in Chicago, you take the travel element out of it for a lot of fans." I think we both disagree. I'm going to let you go first and see if we disagree for the same reasons or not.
I think it's one of the dumbest comments on Twitter in 2024.
Oh, wow, and he waited to the end of the year. So we have a new entry into dumb Twitter comments in December.
Albert Breer's fandom is where? Who is he a fan of? Because that's important context.
Who is he a fan of?
He's a sorry-ass Ohio State fan.
He's an Ohio State fan, okay.
And they're crying. And they're weeping. That's what they're doing.
Well, they've done
they're
a lot of that.
They're in the fetal position.
Yeah.
Sharon Moore spanked them again.
Yes,
Jim Harbaugh did it. Now Sharon Moore is doing it. So let's start there. That's important context.
So we start with Ryan Day being spanked. Okay.
So
it's a fair part.
Ohio State fan there.
Right.
And again, this is typical Albert Breer. Like if you would have told me yesterday, a prominent member of the national NFL media will, indirectly rip on Indianapolis, and you would have given me a list, I would have circled Albert Breer pretty early.
Okay.
I retweet him, and I go, it's an absolute dumb comment. First off, it's a 3-hour drive from Chicago.
Well, I mean,
breaking news here.
That was kind of my thing. It's not like they're across the country from each other. I mean, we're next door to Chicago.
I said this to you yesterday in the 9:30 segment when we talked about this, because we brought this up before it got, into the mainstream world of Twitter. When we look at the secondary ticket markets, and I said the reason for it is if you are an Oregon fan or a Penn State fan right now, and you think your team's going to get on a run, you're going to play 3 neutral site games. 3 of them. That's a lot of travel.
Yeah.
Breaking news, there's not many bowl sites near Eugene. Breaking news, there's not many bowl sites near Happy Valley. If you're Penn State and Oregon, you are getting on planes for all of your playoff games. Right now, if you look at the current bracket, Penn State would have 1 home game and then would be on the road for 3 straight games if they made it to the title game. Same thing with Oregon. So this is the new era of the 12-team playoff. And if you're the Indiana Sports Corp or you're Visit Indy, and the Big Ten title game is great, but unless it is the drivable or the appeal of Indiana that's never been there, this is going to be, I think, an annual thing. Fans are going to have to sit here and make a dollars and cents decision on, do we go to our conference title game? Or do we save money and travel to potentially multiple playoff games? The 12-team playoff has made really the weighing of travel decision much more difficult for fans. And what are you saving your money for? Are you going to go to Indy for the playoff game? Which, again, the Indy airport, they've done a great job with it this week. They have extended direct flights to Eugene, more direct flights to Eugene to try to help out Oregon fans. But if you're an Oregon fan and you're the number 1 seed,
yeah, you think you're playing in 2 or 3 of these games.
And you're going to the Fiesta Bowl here in a month or the Rose Bowl in a month.
I know.
And then you want to win another game and get another road game, you're going to save that money. You're not going to come to the Big Ten title game.
But it's also, KB,
and Chicago wouldn't change it at all. That's such a dumb comment.
I want to get to Chicago here in a second. It is, and I would agree with everything you're saying.
Outdoors at Soldier Field?
That's my thing. If you're talking, okay, when you say, we're going to move it to Atlanta, okay, for the SEC. Well, number 1, that's in a dome. And then number 2, the SEC championship game is going to move to Nashville for a little bit. Nashville's going to be put in rotation when they build that new stadium. And again, I'm not sure, is that going to be a dome as well? Point being, you're not going to have the weather issues, and especially in Atlanta with the dome, you get no weather issues. I mean, Mark, you know this. Number 1, getting to Soldier Field is difficult.
Sucks.
Okay?
It sucks.
And then number 2, I mean, you could have quite literally the worst weather. And I'm guessing, and this would be for Albert Breer and everybody else, I'm guessing if you make that Big Ten championship game and you're compromised because it's 5 degrees below zero with snow and wind, which it's going to be in mid to late, mid-December basically, for a Big Ten championship game, there's going to be whining and crying that why are we putting... This happened with the Super Bowl. It happened when they put the Super Bowl in New York, especially. It's like, why are we compromising our game and not putting it in a warm and or controlled environment? The other thing I would say is 2 things. It's okay, and I'm not saying we should blame fans, but instead of blaming the location, Penn State and Oregon fans could also attend the game. It's also on the teams that make it to attend the game. I think there's a little bit of that. And then, conference championship week in college basketball deals with this a lot, KB. And that is, if you're a Kentucky fan, use Kentucky, for instance, you're going to go to Nashville and spend a bunch of money. If you're an Indiana fan, you're going to go to, Minnesota, you're going to go to Chicago and spend a bunch of money. A lot of times, college basketball has this issue where the environments for these, for conference championship week and the conference tournaments aren't very good. And I think you're seeing some of that. You're seeing some of that here. The ACC is barely better. I mean, the ACC, it's a more expensive ticket, but it's not the SEC. The SEC, you're going to pay $1,000 to get into the game. It's just the SEC. Well, so it's what they do.
The ramifications, I think, are a little different as well. I mean, again, Penn State and Oregon, they both know that they're comfortably in. I mean, the ACC title game is a huge game. I mean, it's a play-in game for Clemson. And for SMU, you could argue.
It could be.
It is a play-in game as well. So, yeah, I just thought an idiotic comment. Didn't shock me at all, coming from who it came from.
Man, Albert Breer and Adam Schefter are on your blank list.
At least he gave us a segment.
Again, 12-team playoff has forced fans to weigh traveling.
Yeah.
For these title games.
It's added a bunch of games. That's the point.
If you're an Oregon fan right now, you are not thinking about a Big Ten title.
No.
You're thinking about, wait a minute, we could win a national title, and if that happens, or if you just get to the national title game, where's the national title this year? Atlanta?
I think so.
Okay, yeah, so that means Oregon, and I have no idea if this is how the bowl format works out for the quarterfinal, semifinal, final, but that is some pathway of Rose Bowl, Fiesta Bowl, and Atlanta.
Right.
So that is LA, that is Phoenix, and that is Atlanta. Let's get out a map here. That means the Oregon faithful will have to get on a plane 3 different times. You think they're going to add a 4th time to get on a plane to Indy for a game that has no real bearing on if they make the playoff or if they, have a significant value, I guess, on getting to the national title game?
Yeah, and I'm not sold if Oregon's going to be there year in, year out that it matters if it's in Chicago. Yeah, maybe if Northwestern makes it, but Northwestern's not going to make it. Doesn't matter to Oregon if it's in Chicago or Indianapolis.
I thought it was a dumb comment.
Yeah, you have. I figured that would set you off. JMB
Scott
crushed
Agnes
it yesterday.
In 5. Let's hit a morning check now.
The morning checkdown brought to you by Butler Bulldogs basketball. The Dogs take on North Dakota State at Hinkle Fieldhouse Tuesday, December 10th. Get your seats by visiting butlersports.com/buy tickets.
Yeah, another rough night last night. The Pacers losers on the road in Brooklyn to the Nets. 99-90 your final there. Pacers just 9-14 on the season. Worse yet, 2-11 away from Gamebridge. Not good. Rick Carlisle post-game. It's not all negative, is it?
There is some progress being made, even though it's not showing up with wins. And so, our staff's got to be positive about that, and we've got to keep pointing out the things that are really making things tough. And really the number one thing is turnovers. And we got to control that and do a better job.
Yeah, I mentioned turnovers, 0 in the first quarter, 12 in the second quarter, just 35 points in the first half. The Pacers tied it in the fourth quarter and then let the Nets go on a 9-0 run. So again, 99-90, your final last night.
That is now 7 straight, right? On the road, I believe. 4 straight losses overall, 7 straight losses on the road, 2-11 away from home this season at Chicago coming up tomorrow night. All right, speaking of on the road, Purdue is on the road tonight to begin their Big Ten slate, and they are an underdog. Had to rub my eyes yesterday afternoon when I saw the lines come out. I'm like, wait, Purdue is an underdog to Penn State? Penn State is 7-1 on the year. They've beaten really only Virginia Tech, and I don't even think Virginia Tech's that good. They did lose to Clemson. I know Clemson has had a nice win over Kentucky this week, but still, they really haven't played anybody. So Purdue, a 1.5-point underdog. It's the third time they've been an underdog already this season.
I feel like I need to bet Purdue tonight.
I know,
right? Isn't there some value there? Come on.
And then it's like,
I don't know a damn thing about Penn State,
the
though.
Big Ten in the road.
I know. Yeah.
It's a holy place. So,
okay.
Bet at your own discretion here. Again, just a reminder on Penn State, Ace Baldwin, their point guard, pretty good player. A lot of VCU flavor to Mike Rhodes and his staff, who took over from Micah Shrewsbury. They do have a 7-foot transfer from Northern Illinois that's done pretty well here early in the season. So Purdue's small ball, in a way, will be tested a little bit in a way that Purdue usually tests teams. By the way, last night college basketball, number 1 and number 2 both went down. That would be Kansas losing at Creighton and Auburn losing at Duke. And shout out to the Fighting Paul Casaros. They beat Doug Gottlieb and the Phoenix of Green Bay. That is a conference win.
Gottlieb looks tired,
for
man.
Coach Casaro.
He looks so
he's doing a lot of things.
He looks so tired.
I mean,
doesn't he? Come on, Doug.
He walked on the show with us and acted like it was a no-brainer and a breeze what he was about to do.
I was like, yeah, I'll coach a D1 basketball team and then go do a 3-4 hour radio show and then go do TV. It's not a big deal. It's easy. Like, okay,
not many
man.
conference wins.
God bless you.
For the Jags in recent years, so shout out to Paul Casaro and company.
Quickly, Packers-Lions tonight. That's your Thursday night football game, Week 14. There we go, 8:15. You can check that out on Amazon. Is this game good enough for you, Al Michaels? Come on, Lions and Packers should be a pretty good one tonight. What's wrong with the Pacers? What worries him the most? Scott Agnes, he joins us next on this Thursday.
All right, Scott Agnes talking to Pacers. A little bit Caitlin Clark and the Fever with us right now. Upcoming in a few. Does Purdue football care about a game tomorrow night? Does that matter in their head coaching search? We'll share more on that here in a few. But the Payless Liquors hotline is where we go. Scott Agnes from Fieldhouse Files. Scott, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Scott, you tweeted last night. I thought it was very early in the game, and it was a very I am nodding my head at a tweet of yours moment for me. The tweet read this: yes, they have several injuries, but the Pacers continue to look like they're broken. Only brief fix was a homestand against below-average teams. Talk of hard play, defense persists, missed shots and turnovers pile up, then frustration mounts, and fans are deeply concerned. I think you just summarized 23 games into the season in 197 characters.
Yeah, it's been bizarre to see, KB. I didn't think – I think going into this season, a lot of fans, as you would appropriately expect, were already talking, hey, get back to the conference final. I wasn't quite that far. I thought, they would really win one playoff series, and then you'd realize the weaknesses and things that needed to be addressed moving forward. But as they went and ran it back, and you usually thrive off that continuity, KB, but that's not been the case at all this season. And they look broken, especially offensively. Defensively, really struggling. And when you're not there offensively, and then there's no confidence, and then I'm not sure there's been any leadership. Has there been any accountability? Just things are not in a good place, to say the least.
The physical play, Rick Carlisle, he said it after games. He said it with us 3 or 4 times, Scott, about the physical play is affecting them. And I thought a couple games ago, especially that Memphis game, I thought they were really bothered by it. I really thought you saw some bad body language. They were whining and crying seemingly after every call. Hell, Rick Carlisle said he tried to get kicked out of the game, and they wouldn't even boot him from the game. How much do you think the physical play that the NBA is allowing is affecting with what we're seeing early on?
I think some, but I think probably the bigger factor that hasn't been discussed a ton, especially maybe since last season, is remember right around the All-Star break here, the NBA was upset with all the scoring. Remember, there would be games regularly, 140 to 135. When the Pacers and Hawks played, it was like 155 to 150. And initially they were kind of coy about it, and then by the end of it, I think Adam Silver even acknowledged, we need to do something, so we stepped in. And in doing so, the Pacers are probably one of the biggest teams most impacted by that. And that was decreasing scoring by really allowing more physical play, by allowing higher quality defense, right? Less finesse, less, offensive showcase, which is exactly what the Pacers are. So that was a direct hit. This team was built that way. This team was built around Tyrese Halliburton and how he plays. So also the fact that he's not playing up to that level, that is a huge factor. It's certainly not in the top 3, but it's definitely up there. But I think the downward spiral a little bit happened last year when the NBA tweaked how it wanted games to be played.
Scott Agnes' work at Fieldhouse Files outstanding. He's with us here on the Payless Liquors hotline. Scott, I go back to a year ago, and I bring this up to try and, I guess maybe I'm reaching too much for a glass of half full, but about a year ago at this time, the Pacers play in the in-season tournament. They get to the finals, et cetera, and then they have a horrid defensive stretch. They allowed 140, 137, 127, and 151 to the Clippers in a 4-game losing streak last season. Rick Carlisle came on with us that Tuesday morning, the morning after losing to the Clippers, and was adamant, we need our defensive practice of the year. We haven't practiced in weeks. We need a heavy defensive emphasis. And then he kind of pointed to that as a bit of an epiphany. They won 10 of 13 after that. Their defense started to improve. If you look at next week, they've got 4 straight days off. They don't play Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. Am I reaching for the glass half full that maybe that is what this team needs right now?
In terms of maybe a come to Jesus moment, yeah.
Right.
I don't think it's necessarily just like an intense defensive practice. If anything, KB, it's like they lost their spirit. It's not just the joy factor. It's the confidence in what they're doing and how they're playing together. I go back to 2 of the turnovers last night. Enrique Freeman inbounds the ball and turns it over. despite there not being much of a defense. And then Ben Mathern passes to the official. Like, it's the attention to details.
It was a good pass to the official. I thought it was a good fundamental bounce
Hit
pass.
him right in the chest. Well, they had a fast break where they're down 2, and Tyrese Halliburton throws the ball right to Dennis Schroeder. He goes down, they lay it up, and it's a 4 or 5 point swing right there. It's little things like that. I mean, they tie the game at 80, and then they allow 10 straight points. Like, how does that happen?
Layup line after that.
And I was just going to say, let's be clear there. It wasn't just giving up points. It was how easy they could not be any easier. A dunk and then 6 layups to end the game. I've never seen anything like it.
Scott Agnes is with us here from Fieldhouse Files. Scott, I do want to shift gears a little bit here towards the Fever, and shout out to Dana Hunziker-Benbow from the Star. She had this story in interviewing kind of one of these financial experts in a look at what Caitlin Clark did for the city of Indianapolis and really kind of the league as a whole last season. And the financial guru threw out a number of Caitlin Clark having a $36 million impact on Indianapolis. A couple of tidbits in the story. 1 of every 6 tickets sold at a WNBA arena was attributed to Clark from last season. Obviously, that is a bigger impact than just outside of Indy. Obviously, Scott, you know the attendance numbers here for the Fever. I mean, what, 10,000 nightly in terms of an increase from the year before, if not more. Probably more like
definitely more.
Probably more like 12,000, honestly. So I don't know, when you saw that number or when you just think back on her impact, I'm sure that doesn't. It's a shocking number, but I'm sure it doesn't stun you, maybe, considering you've certainly lived it over the last year.
No, not at all. I mean, let's just take the Fever. They shattered all their attendance records. They averaged over 16,000 per game, whereas we all remember in years past where there was a curtain up around that upper level, and the only time it came off was an occasional maybe playoff run, and Larry Bird buys tickets or Frank Vogel buys tickets to get more fans into the stands. You think about the four the 11 other teams changed arenas because of Caitlin. They go to Washington twice, set the record both times for the largest attended game in WNBA history. You see the TV ratings where 6 different networks have brand new record ratings, or the draft that was 5x what it was ever before. All that we know is because of Caitlin. That's why, for the life of me, I still don't understand how the WNBA hasn't come out, been more appreciative, supportive. I just look and different things that she does, and they're not sharing it, or Caitlin's sitting courtside. It's the NBA tweeting it, not the WNBA. But there's no question at the level of impact that she has and how she easily earns that $70,000 contract that she gets as a rookie scale deal.
Last one, did I see a David Letterman, Muncie, maybe even a little Long's Donuts appearance for Caitlin Clark?
Yeah, so as part of my next guest is the title of it on Netflix. David Letterman's having Caitlin on. We all saw that or heard about it, I guess, Monday night. That was up in Muncie. That continued into Tuesday with some more filming in Indianapolis, including at Long's. We don't know exactly when that will be coming out. My guess is, wouldn't it be smart to have it maybe in April, right before the season? Although, by the looks of it, he hasn't had a new episode since like June, so he's kind of due. But it's a star-studded affair. It's a good opportunity for her here. And then the other big thing, KB and Andy, is coming up tomorrow, the WNBA expansion draft. So rosters across the league will start to look a little bit different, and that's the first domino to fall here in the offseason, other than the schedule coming out on Monday.
And the Fever have to protect 6 players, that's right, with Golden State being the expansion team?
Can protect up to 6 players. None of those are made public, so we don't know that exactly. But things can get very interesting in terms of maybe a contract you don't like, so you send it away. Or you like a player on another team, you couldn't trade for him, but she's not protected. And you send a couple draft picks to the Valkyries, the expansion team, to go to select them and then trade them to you. There's all kinds of interesting things they could work as the Fever try to add size and experience.
He's all over it, as always. He is Scott Agnes with us Thursdays at 8:30. Scott, thank you, man.
You bet. Thanks, guys.
All right, good job. If you haven't missed any of that, check it out. Podcast Center 1075thefan.com. Coming up on the other side, a familiar voice for sound of the day, plus something blasphemous. KB, I don't think we've even talked about this off air. Happened last night in college basketball. I'll explain. We'll do it next. Appreciate you hanging out with us Thursday on The Fan.
Get Thad Matta going to join us here in about 10 minutes, and people have been wondering if we'd hear from Chris Ballard this week. Is that a common thing for him to talk during the bye week or in season at all? We'll share some thoughts on that coming up in a little. I don't know if it matters a whole lot, but I guess if you want a Purdue football head coaching search update, a name that has been pretty common thrown out there, and I believe was a finalist back 2 years ago when they hired Ryan Walters, is Tyson Helton, the head coach down at Western Kentucky. We chatted with Pat Forty yesterday from Sports Illustrated, and he shared some thoughts on Tyson Helton, certainly known on the offensive side of the ball. Western Kentucky's been in a bowl game every single year. He has been there. They play tomorrow night in their conference title game. Ironically enough, they play against Rich Rod. That would be Rich Rodriguez in Jacksonville State.
I see him on some lists, and I'm like, who the hell wants to hire Rich Rodriguez?
So, sometimes you do see this with kind of the MAC level or, a little level below the Power Four. Some of these coaches that do end up taking the bigger job, Andy, they do like to coach their conference title game. So, could that be a potential domino at all here for Mike Babinski and company? Again, that is tomorrow night. I'm sure Jack Dole doesn't like to hear it, but if Tyson Helton is indeed having some Purdue interest, that could be a domino to fall starting maybe as early as Saturday morning.
I don't think that's a bad hire, but it's not going to be the big swing, the Big Ten swing, and we're gonna, we're gonna go.
Kurt Signetti.
Yeah, we're gonna go get an $8-9 million coach. You're right. It's not. So I think that would be very split. I think I'd be fine with it if Tyson Helton took over, but we'll see what happens there. Here in the next few days, at some point here, we're gonna get a word.
7 to 10
Purdue.
days was what Babinski threw out there. They fired Walters Sunday morning.
Yeah.
Again, portal season has started. Obviously, you just wrapped up the early signing period, so I would say a hire as quick as possible would make sense.
Two things before we get to the top of the hour. Thad Matta, Butler basketball head coach, going to join us coming up here at 9 o'clock. Number one, this actually happened 2 nights ago, but I did not see it until last night. Do you remember a couple years ago, Loyola Chicago, it was Loyola Chicago, right, that made the run to the Final Four?
Right?
Sister Jean. Well, the other night, Loyola Chicago was playing at home, and they were playing Eastern Michigan. And by the way, Loyola having a nice start to the season. They're 7-0, undefeated on the year. I'm actually not sure who even the coach is there. But they beat Eastern Michigan 76-54. And the players were leaving the floor after a nice 22-point win. And Sister Jean was sitting there, and she is in a wheelchair. And she put her fist out to give a fist bump or a high five to the players. And KB, go look at the video on Twitter. All the players walked by her. Nobody on Loyola Chicago gave a fist pump to Sister Jean. What the hell are we doing as a society?
It's like
what are we doing?
It's like if the Butler basketball team doesn't pet Blue, the Bulldog. That's bad juju. I hope they lost the game.
No, they won the game by 22.
No,
so again, they're undefeated.
It's not like she was off on the side
season.
either. She was right in the middle of the walkway.
You saw it, right, Mark?
Yeah.
Poor sister.
Was it a high five or was it a fist bump? I can't remember.
She's like 100. I assume it's the fist bump.
Yeah,
at this
I would
time.
assume that's the case.
High five might send it flying.
come on.
Maybe the players thought the fist bump might knock her over.
Sister Jean has now entered the transfer portal.
She's very old. I mean, she's
going
well
over
up in her 90s.
No, she's 100.
Oh, she 100? She
I believe
100?
so.
Not
She
good
for
for
Chris
her.
Holtman and DePaul.
What's that now?
She's going to change allegiances to Chris Holtman and DePaul.
They might be undefeated, too. Holman has DePaul playing well. You want to live to be 100 years old? Some people don't.
Sister Jean is 105.
So you're a no. You don't want to live to be 105?
No, it doesn't seem like a great life.
Well, she's having a great life, but I feel like
What do
you're
you mean?
mostly
She's getting shunned. I mean, they aren't even giving her a high five.
by a bunch of mid-major basketball
Just
players.
touch the wheelchair or anything.
The other one, Mark, I guess let's play the open here. I want KB to hear this and see if
Are you trying to bait me here?
And see if he catches this too. Mark, play Sound of the Day open. Go ahead.
It's the sound of the day.
Here we go. Welcome.
On the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy.
All right, so here's what I want you to do. This is Brian Kelly whining while he's the head coach of LSU football that he needs LSU fans to give more money so he can go out and buy players. It was National Signing Day yesterday. Mark, I don't know if you listened to this, but about halfway through, we might have to stop it. Because about halfway through, Brian Kelly almost makes a critical... I think he almost makes a big-time mistake here. Go ahead.
Now, it's no longer about just your brand. Your brand has to be backed up with the ability to supplement that with dollars because that's what we're in. And so if you want to get into the portal, if you want to be able to close some of these, you have to have active participation from a donor base. And it can't just be one or two guys. It has to be from all those that want to see Notre Dames or the Ohio States or the Oregons.
Right. Stop it, Mark.
Can you play that again?
He hasn't forgotten his first love.
From all those that want to see Notre Dames or the Ohio States or the Oregon.
He tried to save it.
He tried to save it, but sorry, BK, you didn't save it. He's got Notre Dame on his mind. How about that?
You guys are trying to bait me right now.
How about that? He still loves you.
I told you earlier in the show, I'm not doing it with Brian Kelly right now. Notre Dame's got a playoff game to worry about in 2 weeks. I don't have time for Brian Kelly and his idiotic, immature words.
Hey, now listen, Brian Kelly has the Tony the Tiger Bowl to get ready for on December 31st in El Paso. You settle down.
I saw yesterday it was announced West Virginia's playing in a bowl game in 2 weeks. I'm I totally forgot there's other bowl games.
Ugh. I mean, I'm sure the players are jacked for that one after Neil Brown got fired, their head coach.
So literally,
I can't wait to go out there and play in the whatever bowl.
Are we going to get LSU and Iowa in the Outback Bowl for the 30th year in a row?
Sure, probably.
From all those that want to see Notre Dame.
Oh.
Gosh, man, he fumbled that like Jonathan Taylor on the flea flicker a few weeks ago.
Ooh, that's a bad marriage. That's just.
He lost his accent too.
That ain't gonna work. I thought it would work. I thought it'd be a cool marriage.
Well, LSU is foolproof, right?
Like the guy from the Northeast and the girl
Should
from
Purdue hire Coach Ed Orgeron?
Yes.
Whatever happened to Coach O?
He's probably laying in a bed with a blonde right now.
He's a tanned up.
I'm sure we can make that happen in West Lafayette. Right?
Coach O was killing it.
South Florida.
He was killing it, making $8-9 million a year.
I mean, literally, has he not?
Beautiful girlfriends.
Has he not coached anywhere since?
I don't think so. I'd have to look him. I would have to look him up on Wikipedia if he's been I don't think he's been an advisor anywhere.
You mean he's not consulting like Mike Vrabel is with the Browns?
Boy, I tell you what, Purdue would have some 5-stars visit. Those visits in West Lafayette would be something.
It'd also be fun because Lafayette in Louisiana, West Lafayette.
Look at that, Mark.
West Lafayette.
It's a nice tie.
Oh boy,
they got any beignets in West Lafayette?
That is such a funny culture fit. Just like Brian Kelly and LSU, I figure Purdue and Ed Orgeron.
It does seem. I mean, we're not getting the big opening, right? I mean, unless Ryan Day, are we not going to get it?
I just don't think
Purdue is the only Big Ten or SEC open.
LSU and Brian Kelly cannot like what's going on there, but you think they got to go at least another year or so, right? I don't think. Yeah, I'm with you. Is a big job going to open? Florida, you remember they're backing Billy Napier, so I don't think that's the case. All right, Thad Matta, haven't talked to Coach in a couple weeks, coming off a couple wins. We'll talk some Butler basketball next here on The Fan on this Thursday.
Butler head coach Thad Matta going to join us here in a few. Might have a little giveaway at the end with Coach Matta here. Butler at Houston coming up. Houston has lost a couple games this season. That'll be ESPN2 coming up tomorrow. Again, Saturday. Purdue at Penn State tonight. Again, Purdue an underdog.
Yeah. Ken Palm's got this 51% chance that they win tonight. How about that?
1.5 point underdog as they begin their Big Ten slate.
I see Thad's called in.
Let's head to the Payless Liquors hotline right now. They have won 6 straight games. Again, they are off to Houston coming up tomorrow to take on Kelvin Sampson and company. The head coach of the Butler Bulldogs, Thad Matta, joins us here on this Thursday morning. Coach, good morning to you. How are you?
I'm doing fine. Good morning, guys.
Let's go back to Phoenix. That was an impressive couple games. Certainly some heart-stopping moments in both of those games. But you guys win that multi-team event, something the program hadn't done in a while. What were your thoughts on what you guys were able to get done against Northwestern and Mississippi State?
Well, I tell you what, I mean, we played 2 really good opponents out there, and you know, it's funny because it was 2 contrasting styles, and you know, I thought our guys did a good job of especially on the defensive end. You know, Northwestern with the way they played and the job we had to do, I thought the guys did a great job with the scouting report, and then the quick turnaround from Mississippi State, who was much more up tempo and, you know, attacking the glass, all that stuff. I thought we answered a lot of the calls we had to make throughout the game. You know, there was it's college basketball become. It's a game of runs right now, and you know, we made some runs, took some runs, and finished it off.
Coach, you know, you look at your schedule coming up, Houston, North Dakota State, and then obviously Wisconsin, Marquette, UConn, Villanova, St. John's, who should be a tournament team. How ready, or why do you think you're ready for this next stretch of basketball for your team?
Because we got to play the games. I tell you, it is a heck of a schedule, and you know, with what we have coming up here, obviously starting with Houston on Saturday. But this is, you know, I think it's college basketball. I mean, I do think the thing that I like about our team right now is we've gotten better. And, you know, I'm still not happy with the way we're taking care of the ball, 17 turnovers the other night. But I've seen a lot of growth with this team. And, you know, I think that's one of the things with an older team. I wouldn't say we're a veteran team in terms of being together, but that's my biggest thing is, can we just keep getting better and better, and knowing that there's some rough road ahead, that's for sure, and you know, we got to go in playing our best basketball every night or every time we take the floor.
Again, that voice is the head coach of the Butler Bulldogs, Thad Matta. They have won 6 in a row. Houston coming up Saturday down there, taking on Kelvin Sampson and company. Coach, they threw up a graphic in the game the other night. You guys were 6th in three-point percentage in the entire nation, and 5th defensively in three-point nation. Like, that to me is like an unbelievable stat, the fact that you've shot it that well and then are defending the arc as well as you have on the other end of the floor. How much of that was an off-season emphasis for you, and I guess does that surprise you at all?
You know what? It was a major priority for us. You know, we knew we had to shoot the ball better than we had, and spent a lot of time working on guys' shots. And I think on the defensive end, you know, the first 2 years here, that's kind of been our Achilles heel, as we haven't defended real well. So I've made that a priority every day in practice, and just in terms of you know, and we also went out, we recruited some more length at positions, and you know, as we, you know, continue moving forward, that's got to be a staple of who we are in terms of our defense. I don't know if we can keep the numbers where they are, but that is a big priority, especially our, you know, the 2-point field goal percentage. We're really trying to make teams take more tough twos than we ever have before.
Butler basketball head coach Thad Matta with us here, 9 o'clock hour on this Thursday on the Fan. He joins us, as always, on the Payless Liquors hotline. This Houston team, number 5 in the Ken Palm. We know Kelvin Sampson teams, how tough they usually are. What makes this version maybe different or the same from his last few teams?
I tell you what, they're good. You know, they're an older team. They've been together. You know, I've only coached against Coach Sampson once, I think, when he was at Oklahoma. may have been at Xavier at the time, and I guess Indiana too. But his teams they're going to come at you. They're going to attack the glass. Sometimes their best offense is just throwing it up to the basket and going and getting it. And we're going to need a Mississippi State type rebounding effort to have a chance to win. He's got some obviously very talented players. He does a good job of putting them in positions to score, and hopefully we can take that away. And then we got to handle their pressure and do a good job of executing our offense. But very, very, very good basketball team.
Coach, Jamil Telfort, Big East Player of the Week, the reigning Big East Player of the Week, Canadian guy, 8 brothers and sisters. You guys found him in the portal from Northeastern. I'm assuming you didn't know much about him before maybe that portal introduction, but what do you remember kind of about the early intro into a guy that obviously has meant a lot to you?
Well, I tell you what, I think the thing that impressed me the most about Jamil was just his attention to detail to everything that he does. And that's, carried over since he's got here. I've said this, he's kind of like a poster child for what an athlete should be in terms of how he takes care of his body, how he, his nutrition, how he eats, his rest, his work ethic of working on his weaknesses. He's obviously been a tremendous addition for us, and gosh, you wish you had a lot of him, because he's like I said, his attention to detail and everything that he does is tremendous. It really is.
Thad Matta with us here on this Thursday on the Payless Liquors hotline. All right, Coach, I got a question for you, okay? It's not about your team. It's about coaching. I'm just interested. So Dan Hurley last week got into it with the officials like 9 times, okay? I'm sure you followed some of that. It was one of the stories last weekend around Thanksgiving of college basketball, and I know you've been a coach, obviously, for a long time. You've been kicked out of some games. I'm sure you've been on the receiving end of some technicals. The conversation with Hurley was the officials aren't going to like Hurley because he yells at him a lot. Is that true? Do you run into that as a coach? Have you ever run into that as a coach where, you got into it with an official and maybe 2-3 weeks later that picked up again? Or is that just the media talking when we don't all the time know very much, Coach? That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, I think this, every coach has his way of dealing with officials. I think that, just in terms of I think we're probably all different in that regard. I've had some issues with guys before, but when the game gets going, I do the best that I possibly can not to get caught up in the officiating, and hey, they're human just like we are, and I make mistakes in the game as well as they make mistakes, and but by the same token, every coach is going to fight for his players now. And that's one thing that I will always do. And I think, just from the standpoint of, you can't take anything personal through the course of the game. You've got to be as focused on coaching as you can. But, every now and then you lose your mind. And I've been known to do that before.
Sure.
Coach, we'll end with this, and we appreciate your time. Again, Butler and Houston coming up 5:30 on Saturday. It's an ESPN2 tip for the Bulldogs. Next week, you guys will be at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Obviously, a lot of people in this market will remember the days of the Crossroads Classic, and Butler had some great moments in that, obviously with Indiana, Notre Dame, and Purdue. Indiana, Notre Dame decided to bow out of it. Purdue has been a bit of a staple here over the last couple of years. You guys now get involved with Wisconsin coming up a week from Saturday. Do you expect that to be a staple for your non-conference schedule, playing a game over there at Gainbridge Fieldhouse once a year?
I hope so. I think it's a great opportunity for us and for Greg in Wisconsin. I think the Big Ten tournaments here in town, you want to get a game in there. So it worked out for us. But I did the same thing when I was at Ohio State. We tried to play a game over there with the conference tournament. Going to be there. But no, it should be a great environment with Purdue and Texas A&M playing before us, I think. And those are when I was retired, I went to the Crossroads a couple times and obviously enjoyed it. So different seat this go around, but it'll be should be fun.
Yeah, certainly. It'll be a fun day over there again. Noon, as Coach said, Purdue and A&M, and then Butler, Wisconsin, 2:30. Wisconsin having a great start to this season. Coach, congrats on the 6-game win streak. Safe travels down to Houston, and we'll be watching coming up Saturday at 5:30. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Thad Matta, Payless Liquors Hotline.
You have a giveaway?
Yeah, but I just said the answer, and I was going to make people wait a couple minutes for it.
Kevin.
Sorry to do that to you. That's where I thought you were gonna go. Then I thought, wait a minute, did I start daydreaming for 30 seconds and did I miss KB saying it, which also would have been funny radio? So I just kind of blurted it out there.
Butler, North Dakota State coming up Tuesday night from Hinkle. That is a 6:30 tip. How many straight wins for the Butler Bulldogs? If you can name that.
Okay.
317-239-1070. 4-pack of tickets to watch Butler take on, was it the Bison of North Dakota State?
Believe
is that
it.
right?
I believe it is.
You might as well ask your question because phone lines are getting busy.
Well, that was the question.
I said
you did? I'm sorry.
What was your initial question?
Okay, we just have chemistry. Just it could not be. We
Mark
look like the
wasn't
Pacers
listening.
Who's
right
got
now.
it better than us? Nobody.
unbelievable.
We really do. We are disjointed right
Pacers.
now. We are the Pacers. What was your initial question?
Call a
Was it a
timeout.
Telford answer or what was it?
No, it was the how many straight wins those Butler had.
Okay, gotcha. Every time I think of the Crossroads Classic, I just roll my eyes at Notre Dame and Indiana didn't want to play in it.
Yeah.
Just a little bit, right?
Yeah,
Especially
it's,
IU. A little rolling of the eyes.
And this year with Indiana, too, we've gotten the no game, right, at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Like, usually they've done I think they played Miami of Ohio one year. I want to say they played Harvard one year. I don't think any game for Indiana, right, at Gainbridge Fieldhouse
No,
this season?
I know they didn't do it last year because we talked about it. I remember being one of the first. I remember us having this exact same conversation. Yeah, I'll just shut up with that. At least, I mean, listen, it's the last couple of years they've had big time teams roll into here, and it's gonna be another good Saturday of basketball. I mean, just like last year. Indiana had Arizona last year
had opted for Kansas. They did the home and home with them.
Mm-hmm.
Remember they played Arizona out in Vegas as well. Is there anything for Indiana next Saturday? I'm trying to think because usually that is kind of a popular non-conference game. I know they got Miami of Ohio. I know the Big Ten slate starts coming up next week for them. Purdue's got Auburn, right? Next week?
I believe so, which Auburn lost last night, but Auburn's been pretty good, man. I don't even know when the next game for Indiana is. Next
they got
Monday.
Miami of Ohio tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then they got their Big Ten games next week.
Yeah, they have Minnesota, Nebraska, then they have Chattanooga, Winthrop, Rutgers. So they have nothing coming up that's interesting at all. Nothing. Yeah, they should play a game in Gainbridge. No, there's no doubt about it. The Crossroads Classic was a good idea.
I thought it was a shame that Notre Dame and IU both bowed out.
It's just silly. Absolutely. I don't know. That was good, though. I mean, they have had, and what they need one of these wins. If they can get it on the road, that would be even better. They need one of these big-time wins because that Austin P loss is going to be a quad 4 loss all season. It just is.
Yeah, Butler's resume, I think, will be pretty interesting if they can obviously get something in the Big East as well. If they're able to get one of these two, Houston or Wisconsin, on a neutral floor, I mean, Andy, let's say they lose to Houston and beat Wisconsin.
Right.
That means they'll have 3 neutral floor wins over power conference teams.
It's a good point. Andy would give them
State, Northwestern,
Mississippi State's a quad 1 win.
And then they will beat SMU. Remember, they beat SMU at Hinkle.
Yep.
Back last month. That's kind of and obviously the Austin P loss is a bad loss, but then you have the 3 neutral court wins over Power 5 teams. I mean, how many programs have that? I can't imagine there's many out there that would, and that doesn't even include SMU. So the non-conference schedules for Butler, Purdue, and Indiana are very different, and the non-conference resumes for those 3 teams are very, very different. And Purdue still has an opportunity to add a Texas A&M, who I think is a top 25 team.
Oh, they've been in and out of the top 25. Yeah, I mean, again, that'd be a quad 1 win.
Auburn would be one of the best wins anybody has had in college basketball this year.
Yeah, if you go to bracketologist.com, that's a website I use a lot. Bracketologist.com. It breaks it up into quads and it puts the net rating out there and it kind of shows you where the current NCAA tournament cutoff would be. And right now, Butler would be considered an NCAA tournament team, being 7-1. It's interesting. A couple spots below them is St. John's and Rick Pitino. They're 0-2 in quad 1s, but they have all their quad 4 wins, right? They didn't lose any of those. Whereas Butler, we could be sitting here in a couple days, them having 2 or 3 quad 1 wins, but having that Austin P loss as well.
Is Indiana in?
No. Indiana's in the Indiana right now, I believe, is 67 in the net, if I'm not mistaken. I think 67.
I know they went up after the Sam Houston State win, but yeah. So Butler is above Indiana, is that what you're saying?
Oh, yeah, Butler's 20 spots above Indiana. I don't know. Last night or a couple nights ago with Indiana, we got lost in the Pacer stuff and Colts stuff and everything else. I'm pretty sure IU's going to end up being an NCAA tournament team, but I'm not as sold as I was. I don't know. Their guard play's uneven. They're going to get some teams in Assembly Hall, and they'll beat those teams because it's the best. It's one of, if not the best atmosphere at times in college basketball. So, to think that they're going to go in there, Trey Galloway catches fire, but I don't know, man. I mean, you have big questions. Galloway hasn't been as good as he was last year. He's had injuries. Kanan Carlisle has, he's had injuries, and when he has played, I mean, he's been one of the worst players. Is Mike Woodson going to dedicate himself to not going two bigs, right? Can they play small? I like Miles Rice, but he's, you feel like one night he can give you 19 points and you feel like the next night he might be 1 of 10 from the field, right? I mean, don't you feel watching him? So Indiana's going to need to prove it a little bit. Fortunately for them, their schedule really is pretty easy the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, but I don't think that's a good thing.
No, it's not a good thing.
I think their resume needs substance, and it has no substance.
The next 2 weeks, they may face one tournament team if you believe that Rutgers is going to end up being a tournament team.
And unfortunately,
I guess I do.
I don't think this is a great Big Ten year, so I don't think you're going to get as many. Yes, you will get, obviously, quad 1 and quad 2 opportunities, but it won't be as much of a given as it has been in years.
It's not the Big 12.
No.
It's not the Big 12.
Or the SEC with what you saw them do to the ACC. Again, IU, Miami of Ohio. Shout out to Pete Suter, the Carmel kid, the transfer from Bellarmine. He had 42 the other night for the Red Hawks of Miami of Ohio. A lot of Indiana flavor on that staff. Christian Smith from Pike. John Holmes, of course, the son of JR, the runner-up to Mr. Basketball in, 98, 99, probably something around there. Travis Steele, the head coach of Miami of Ohio. So, again, a lot of Indiana flavor on that staff. That'll be Big Ten Network tomorrow night, 7 o'clock. Many have asked Andy about, would or should we hear from Chris Ballard in a week like this? I think if you do look around the NFL, I don't know if you'll see a decent amount of GMs talk during the bye week, but you definitely see several talk. For example, you've seen this week Nick Caserio, the Houston GM. I know that's got a lot of play because of the comments about his linebacker, of course, committing that penalty, getting ejected out of the Jacksonville game. So you do see some of that. Andrew Berry with the Browns, I know, talked during their bye week here. Now, Ballard has kind of been, I would say he's dialed back the in-season stuff over the years. He has not been hey, I'm talking during the bye week guy. Last year, for example, he did the Colts podcast during their bye week. He did not, or I should say he has not done that at this point this week. So that is something that he has done before.
That's a good point. I forgot about that.
It's been a couple of years, but I think at some points he did do a bit of an update on the Monday night show that you hear with Matt Taylor and Joe Wrights and
He
Rick
did it
Venturi.
every 4 weeks.
Yeah, I feel like at times he did, and at times he didn't do that. Mm-hmm. He did the quarterly updates. Again, I didn't think that was as consistent. So basically, I would say to summarize it is Ballard has dialed back. He hasn't done much in season, but he has dialed some of it back. Again, I don't have a huge issue with him not talking in season.
Yeah, I agree.
Frankly, I think, and I've probably expressed my thoughts on Ballard here, and I think people understand it, on where I would disagree and push back on his resume overall, the roster building, the lack of focus on premium positions. We don't need to go over all of it. But I would say this, in terms of him talking in season, I think he does a great job of talking as much as he does out of season. And I think he's relatively candid when you compare him to other GMs. So I don't have that big of a gripe on
it. I don't either. And I'm usually the guy that's like, if he does talk it, listen, if he does have a press conference, it's good for us because Ballard he'll hold a 30-minute press conference, KP. He'll be up there for 20, 25 minutes.
He'll probably talk about you too.
Bowen, every time I freaking read or listen to Bowen.
Here's what I would say. The reason this year's, and I know last year was the same way, this year, it's still, the Colts are still to be determined. Very to be determined. I mean, if they go in the next month, KB, they play their best football, and Anthony Richardson plays his best football, and they can go to Denver and win, and they can make the postseason. They play a bunch of crappy teams down the stretch. It's a much different tenor than if they lose to Denver and they lose to the Giants or Titans. in the final couple weeks of the season, and they just kind of fizzle out and aren't a playoff team, and Anthony Richardson maybe doesn't play very well, and other guys don't play very well, right? So, like, it feels like this week, like, it's very much the next month is going to decide whether the next time we hear from Chris Ballard, he is in a really good mood or he's in a really, really bad mood, right? I mean, that's where we're at. The next few games are going to decide if this season and this regime has turned things around or if they're just a team yet again that misses the playoffs and drafts in the middle of the NFL draft.
Well, let me take it a step further. If it goes off the rails, do we hear from him again?
That's a good question.
I mean, is that question not on the table?
It is. I don't view it as maybe being on the table as others, just because past president has told me that Chris Ballard is going to stick around.
Right.
And they're going to, we talked about this on Monday, they're going to win enough games down the stretch to where if they don't make the postseason, they're going to point to a couple games, a couple plays, and a couple injuries and say, guys, we were this close. We were so close that if we can clean up this at the end of a game and we don't have Anthony Richardson missing a couple games or Jonathan Taylor, then we're a playoff team and everyone would be happy. That's essentially what they did last year.
I just don't think it's going to get ugly enough to that the front office even remotely wants to go through that process of making a change and going through interviews. I don't think they have it in them to go through that situation. They're just like, okay, it's close enough, it's good enough, we'll run it back. It hasn't gotten ugly enough to where we have to make a change.
The most unlikely scenario is them bottoming out.
Yes.
Right? The Bears, they very well could bottom out here. The Giants kind of in a couple weeks, they have bottomed out. The Carolina Panthers, they haven't. I mean, they're fighting. They're still playing some tough football, but some teams bottom out. I don't think the Colts are going to bottom out. I think they beat the Giants. I think they beat the Jags. I guess I would think they beat Will Levis and company.
Yeah, we've gone through who the quarterbacks are that they're going to be facing in the 3 of the last 4 games. They're not going to make a change. I don't think so.
Bo Nix, Will Levis, Drew Lock, Mac Jones. Those are your 4 quarterbacks you're looking at. Again, we'll obviously hammer this next week. But the game of the year coming up a week from Sunday in Denver, just to briefly go over the magnitude of that one. Basically, if the Colts win it, they will have, I think, a slightly better than coin flip chance of making the playoffs. They will still need for Denver to lose one more. Denver has the Chargers, the Bengals, and the Chiefs in their final 3 games. If the Colts lose it, we could probably start having Dane Brugler on weekly.
I was about to say, Mark's going to have to start
speed dial.
He's going to have to start reaching out to NFL draft guys.
That's
you're
pretty
right.
much where it's at.
Probably,
gives you, I would say, about a coin flip, maybe a little better than a coin flip.
Denver's going to have to fall off the face of the earth, and they have a difficult schedule. They have the Chargers and the Chiefs.
Fall off the face of the earth. If you beat them, you just need one more Denver loss.
I was meaning if they lose and we have the conversations about the NFL draft
you need
and
the
Dane
Broncos
Brugler
to get COVID.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
Have you seen the early line for Colts Broncos?
We guessed it at what, 2 or 3?
Yeah, 2.5, 3.5.
I said 4.5. It is 3.5.
That's about right. That's not surprising.
It is interesting.
In favor of the Broncos.
Now, you could make this case to Colts fans. Would they rather the game at stake be win or loss, or the win or loss from a week from Sunday? That means Peyton Manning gets to say their team's name first every time he talks about who he played for in the NFL.
That's a great point.
What do you think means more to fans? The win or the loss, or Peyton wears Colts colors?
It's a great point. He still lives in Denver, right? Does he own like 30 Papa Johns or something like that?
The winner of the game gets a Manning cast game.
Is that
from
what they
Peyton
get
next year.
Have the Colts ever? I should know this. Have they ever got? They never got a Manning cast game, right?
I believe not.
It's only been a couple years.
No,
so I would say they haven't.
Believe not.
Nope.
You imagine Peyton gouging his eyes out at some of the quarterback
I know
play?
Eli has had a couple on the Giants, and the product that the Giants have thrown out there on Monday Night Football.
Did he not do a Broncos game at some point?
I think he did. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that he did. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that he did.
On that end. All right, Jason Hammer coming up in a few. It is a great Thursday night game tonight. Packers and Lions coming up. And by the way, you bring up injury excuses for the Colts. What would be the Lions? How many injuries do the Lions have?
I just saw a meme. I mean, it was every bit of 12 guys on the defense only on season-ending injured reserve. 12, I think.
Man, Campbell's handled it quite well. So we'll talk about Thursday Night Football with Hammer coming up in 5, a Mark Dykton version of the pop quiz after that. Before it all, let's check it out.
The Morning Checkdown, brought to you by
Yeah, we can move quick here. Pacers losers again, of course, on the road last night, 99-90. Your final 9-14 on the season. Are the Pacers just 2-11 away from home? Not good. Just 35 points in the first half. 0 turnovers in the first quarter. 12 turnovers in the second quarter. And then, of course, in the fourth quarter, they tie the game at 80 apiece, and Brooklyn goes on a 10-0 run, and they end the game there. So not good. Pacers, again, 9-14 on the early season.
At Chicago tomorrow night, and then home to Charlotte, 5 o'clock tip coming up on Sunday. All right, over in Happy Valley tonight, Purdue is an underdog on the road in their first Big Ten game of the year. Purdue, again, has won back-to-back Big Ten titles by 3 games each of the last 2 seasons. They will take on Mike Rhodes and Penn State. Penn State is 7-1 on the year. They lost to Clemson, beat Virginia Tech, really haven't played anybody. They do have a 7-footer. So Trey Kaufman-Renn staying out of foul trouble will be something to keep an eye on. Again, Purdue's gone small. Worked out for him in San Diego in winning that tournament there. So this is a 6:30 tip, FS1, Purdue and Penn State coming up tonight.
Week 14 NFL season tonight. Packers on the road. Go ahead, Mark. Packers and Lions should be a pretty good one tonight. Detroit favored by 3.5 in this one. Boy, I feel like a lot of national people are pushing me that they think Green Bay is going to win this game.
It's kind of like one of the injuries going to catch up to the Lions.
Yeah, at some point. I mean, the Lions, of course, being very good, 5-1 at home. Boy, I need to check out the lowest tickets for that game. Packers-Lions tonight at 8:15. A couple other nuggets. Trevor Lawrence's season is over. A shoulder operation coming up in his future. Plus, he's just been beat the hell up. They want to get the number 1 pick. So he's done for the season. And then Baltimore wide receiver Deontay Johnson, 1-game suspension this week. Conduct detrimental to the team. You got anything else?
Yeah, shout out to Paul Casaro and the IU Indy Jags. They get it done last night over Doug Gottlieb. That one had to feel good for Coach Casaro. 84-75. Big second half for the Jags there. They get a conference win. Those have been hard to come by for them in recent years. Also, we did see the official upholding of the suspension for Texans linebacker Azeez Al-Shaair. He will miss 3 games. They're on their bye week this week. He'll miss 3 games. Just a reminder, the Texans and Colts have 4 games left. The magic number for Houston to clinch the division is 2. So that is combination of Texans wins or Colts losses.
Yeah. So it can be wrapped up here pretty damn fast.
It's going to be probably a long shot on that end. And the Colts just announced today Kenny Moore, their Walter Payton Man of the Year. Kenny Moore has done outstanding work off the field here. And also down in his area, Valdosta area.
Good for him.
Where he went to college. I know he's helped a lot in the hurricane relief down there.
Yep.
Over the past couple of months and has been big time here in the Indy community. So a great football player.
Yeah, good for him.
Great off the field as well.
Yeah, congratulations to Kenny Moore. All right, coming up on the other side, let's try to win some money on Thursday Night Football. Jason Hammer in studio. He joins us next.
I think it's our Thursday night game of the year. I felt like we got, what was it? Was it Bengals-Ravens earlier this year? That was a great one, if I remember correctly. But, boy, Packers-Lions here, early December, outstanding. And you know what that means. Thursday at 9:30, Jason Hammer, who has made us a lot of money to close out 2024. Christmas is paid for, thanks to you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I bought a real tree. All on the money we've made on Thursday Night Football.
Oh, a real tree for Andy Sweeney is where he went with.
I'm a real boy. I'm a real boy.
You're right. This is the game of the week. I think it's kind of a bad schedule this week for the NFL. Not a lot of like marquee type of games. I guess maybe Chargers, Chiefs, but I don't think anybody's super excited to watch that Charger offense. So this is it tonight. I love this game. And they played a couple weeks ago. And if you remember, that was the rain pouring down.
Right, out in Lambeau.
Awful conditions. And Lions still beat them. So I looked at the line this morning, and 3.5 is what I'm seeing.
Yeah,
Lions,
that's where it's at.
3.5.
Getting favored at home.
Favored at home. Lions winners of 10 straight. Green Bay comes out of the gate pretty quickly. So I think if Detroit can tread water a little early, they're going to be fine. I'm leaning Detroit here, -3.5. Green Bay, 1-5 straight up in their last 6 games at Detroit. Detroit, 4-1 against the spread, last 5 games against division teams. Factor all that in, being at home tonight. If Green Bay scores early, relax. That's what Green Bay does. Lions are a second quarter and on team. So if you want to take a little look at that Green Bay money line first quarter, don't be afraid. But the official on the board play tonight. We're going to lay 3.5 with Detroit. This kind of feels like one of those 27-23 types of games tonight. The over-under...
You'd be sweating a lot if it's 27-23.
I was going to ask you about that. It's the highest one in the NFL this week. It's 51.5. It's a lot of points.
It was an under earlier, but it was in bad conditions. But it's also Thursday on a short week, so I ain't touching the total tonight. I want no part of that. But I do think the Lions take care of business at home. Now, for some prop bets tonight.
Oh, let's go.
If you want to prop, lock, and drop it, here we go. Jared Goff.
Okay.
Over 1.5 passing touchdowns. This number blew my mind. I had to look this up to make sure this was right. He's thrown 2 or more touchdowns in each of the last 11 home games against NFC North teams.
Wow.
11 straight games of 2 or more touchdowns.
Where the hell are you finding this stuff?
Dude, I know people
got
who
an
put people in
illness.
trunks, Kevin.
Unbelievable. Gosh.
He's got a podcast called The Degenerates.
Come on.
Touché.
He's living up to his name. Come on.
How about Josh Jacobs tonight? Because I always like to get prop bets where you're interested no matter who has the ball, right? So we got a Lions prop. Let's go with Josh Jacobs here. The over-under set at 69.5 rushing yards. Let's ride the Lightning. Let's go over on that one.
Oh, you can't cheer for the under on that.
Well, especially against the Colts. He certainly proved that.
He had 95 yards and 13 carries in that god-awful, rainy, cold game they had, and that's in crappy conditions. So he's running on turf tonight, plus it's a banged-up Lions defense. Obviously, no Hutchinson. The linebacker, Rodriguez, was injured against the Colts. Right. He's out tonight.
Alex Anzalone's been out for a couple weeks now, their leading tackler.
And if you're Green Bay and you want to keep that Lions offense off the field, if you don't want Goff throwing over 1.5 passing touchdowns, you hand the ball to the big fella. So we're going to ride that over tonight. So we got the over on the rushing yards on Jacob, over on the passing yards on Goff, and we're going to lay 3.5 with the Lions.
All right, I want to get to your Tennessee Volunteers, but I have a gambling question, and Mark and I were actually talking about this yesterday after the show. And again, that's Jason Hammer Afternoons, WIBC. Also, Degenerates Next Door podcast. You guys are dropping your NFL episode today, 1 o'clock, right?
That is
You've
correct.
got the college one out. That's ready to go. 1 o'clock today will be your slate for the NFL weekend. So I made a rookie mistake on Sunday, okay? But it was good for me. I had the first half over in the Panthers and Bucks, and the Panthers played good football. I mean, they did defensively. They kicked the hell out of Baker Mayfield, okay?
Bryce Young, too, man. You look at his last month.
Not terrible.
Not terrible.
Not terrible. So, and they're playing hard, and they've got 3 wins. Who knows if they win another one, but they haven't given up, and I think that's half the point. But so the over-under was the number I was trying to get it at was 23.5, and so I was on DraftKings. They're offering 23. They're offering 23.5 and 22.5. So I went to 22.5. Obviously, you're paying more juice, but if you win money, it's okay. I'll take a couple bucks less. So I had it at 22.5. The whole time I thought I had it at 23.5. And so Baker Mayfield, we had that bum kicker for Carolina miss a field goal. We had Baker, who's playing the worst football he's played in about a month, okay? And so it ends up being a first half of 23. I thought for over 24 hours that I lost that bet. And I was not happy about it. I was pissed off that I lost that bet. And then, whatever it was, I don't know if it was Monday morning, Sunday night, I go, wait a minute. I had that at 20. Well, there's more money in my account than I thought. I had it at 22.5. And so Mark brought up, have you ever thought you made a bet, but you didn't hit confirm, and you didn't do it? So have you ever had, Hammer, I know you're gambling all these games, have you ever had that happen to you where you've been a dummy like me?
That's a great story, though. Like, it has a happy ending.
It does.
Usually it's the other way around.
Usually it's the other way around.
I had this number, then I get beat by the hook, right?
Exactly.
You're walking around like Vince McMahon strutting down to the ring, and you check your ticket, and you're like, wait a minute.
Yeah, I was like, come on, Carolina. This is the game, the one time I bet on you all season that you're going to do this. Come on.
I have bet on things that I forgot I bet on.
Yeah, well.
Like, not to where I forgot what the number was. Like, oh, yeah, I bet on that Mac game on Tuesday night. And you check your ticket the next morning, you check your app. Well, I'll be damned. Attaboy, Akron. Let's go. Let's go.
Good job, Marshall.
So I did bring a little something. It's been a couple weeks since we've been in here with the holidays. I can't remember if we won last time or not. Truth be told, I drink a lot. So here, I'm going to give this to KB.
Thank you. What is this?
Is this food?
Well, thank you, sir.
No, this is a little something from God's country. I went down to Rocky Top last week, stopped by the Old Smoky Distillery, and bought a bunch of like the hardcore stuff. And if you buy a few bottles, they give you like one of these little dessert samplers here.
Oh, that's cool.
Look at this banana pudding cream moonshine.
Well, right. Well, also I see that you're doing a moonshine advent calendar.
Yes,
that sounds amazing.
That does sound pretty good.
That was part of the purchase.
Can you walk us through that?
So now through December, just like an advent calendar you have for kids, where they open up the little door and there's a piece of chocolate. I bought this big, sweet son of a you-know-what that if you pull out this little sliding door, there's a little sample size like this one of a different moonshine every single day now through the 25th.
That sounds like what the three wise men did back in the day.
Exactly. It's what Jesus would have wanted. So, and here's the thing that I'm dealing with. So I get some of these like we're about to try here. It's not quite what you would find some hillbilly making in his shed, right?
Yeah.
The term moonshine.
This isn't in a blue jar.
It's not in a bathtub somewhere.
Right, maybe watered down a little bit. So the purists kind of get a little angry. If you buy it in a store, it's not a moonshine.
Yeah.
Well, it says it on the package, and I like to drink. So I bought it, and if you want to see us do that every night, you can follow Hammer and Nigel, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Cheers, boys.
Yes,
cheers.
cheers.
Let's make so much money that we can start our own shine business. Let's go.
Oh, that's good.
Oh, man, that is dangerous.
Yeah, that's good. That's the best one.
That is dangerous.
That's the best one you've brought in. I was skeptical. That's good. The banana pudding.
Yes.
I like banana pudding anyway.
Tyson just tweeted at me, that Old Smoky banana cream moonshine is awesome. Chill it. Nothing else is needed. Boy, that is outstanding.
That is good.
And that's a great piece of advice because the first 2 nights of the Advent calendar, I didn't have it in the fridge. So the first night was like eggnog shine. Night number 2 was hunch punch or something. And they were good, but I thought, it's probably a little better if it's cold, and everybody in the comments lit me up. So I got it in the fridge at the Hammer house now, and tonight, sometime between 8 and 9, we'll open up another one.
Gosh, that sounds like a great little Thursday night sip here in the Bowen household. I got to ask you about the college football championship weekend, because Andy and I were talking about this earlier in the show. Hammer, we got 9 championship games. None of them are more than a touchdown spread. These are all very close game. I mean, we're talking Penn State, Oregon is a small spread. Georgia, Texas, SMU, Clemson. Anything you like from a college slate this weekend? Again, we usually ask about the local games. We don't have any of the local games. Anything you like on a college football championship weekend that I think we're largely confused by? Like, how much do these games matter, et cetera, et cetera?
Well, I am confused by something, and we talked about this on the podcast, the college one that comes out on Tuesday, Degenerates Next Door. This point spread in Oregon, Penn State. Like, objectively, when I saw that this was going to be the matchup.
Is that right? Oregon favored?
That felt like a 5.5, maybe 6 line, right? But what do odds makers know that we don't know? Because, man, I've been crunching the numbers. I've been looking up the matchups here, even the coaches here. You look at Oregon's coach against Big Game James. The fact that this is only 3.5, that's weird. I'm on Oregon, but I wouldn't be shocked if something squirrely happened here because that number doesn't make sense. Oregon is so much better than Penn State, I think, in every category, speed, coaching, offensively, all of that. And for that number to be that low, it's kind of a trap. I don't know.
Who do you want Tennessee? You're a Vols fan. Who do you want them to play? Do you care? You're like, hey, I'm in the playoff. It doesn't matter. There's a matchup you like.
Obviously, I wanted a home game, but that doesn't look like it's going to happen.
Yeah, you guys are at Ohio State in the current bracket, right?
Right. So, look, I'm not going to be one of these dudes that complains and moans and whines because if you beat Arkansas during the season, you're not in the situation.
Well, you're the only person in college football not complaining or whining right now.
But here's what I want. If you're going to go to Ohio State, and I think Tennessee plays an Ohio State type of game, right? They run the ball. They're physical. It's a Big Ten style that Tennessee plays. Do it better than they do, and if you beat the Buckeyes, I want you to take the biggest, baddest Tennessee flag you can find. You run to midfield. You spike it on that stupid pot leaf on the O. And you sing Rocky Top louder than you've ever sang it before, baby.
Dot my eye.
Right.
I love it. I love it.
Oh, man. Just don't get maced on the way out. That's the only thing.
Next door is the podcast. Jason Hammer every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, WIBC. Hammer Nigel's a great listen. Hammer, thank you, sir. Hope you had a great Thanksgiving.
You guys too. Thank you.
All right,
Jason Hammer every Thursday, 9:30 with us here on The Fan.
Yeah, check out the podcast. Check out our podcast. You miss any of that conversation, 107.5 The Fan.
We should remind people about tonight. Again, Lions, that's -3.5. That is over on Goff's passing yards.
Yes, 1.5.
Touchdowns.
Okay, 1.5.
1.5 touchdowns, and then Josh Jacobs rushing yards, the over on that end.
All right, coming up on the other side. All right, substitute teacher pop quiz time. This is Mark Dykton, so we'll blame him. 239-1070. Load him up. It's a Thursday on The Fan.
Like Ryan Day is to Michigan, our pop quiz callers are afraid of Mark Dykton.
Yeah, how did yesterday, my pop quiz, we loaded the phone lines immediately, and then on, what was it, Tuesday, and then
they were
today.
afraid of mine a bit.
Yeah, what's going on? People are afraid of Mark Dykton's pop quiz? Come on.
There's no pro wrestling this time. I've switched it up.
Hey,
No
don't
pro
they,
wrestling
don't they go to
questions.
Netflix next month?
WWE, yeah, January 6th.
Saw McAfee re-upping with Michael Cole, right?
Uh-huh.
317-239-1070, Mark Dykton version of the pop quiz. Jiffy Lube oil change if you go 5 for 5. I'm a little nervous to share what we talk about in the breaks and bring them on air. I'm always kind of like, boy, is that a little bit taboo?
Yeah.
And I think I'm allowed to say it. And so I said it to you guys during the break. Our current college football first-round matchups, that's a college football fan erection.
Oh, it is. Yeah, what was JMV called? A sports arousal?
Oh,
That's what it is.
Yeah. I mean, it is 1,000% that. Again, you have Notre Dame, Alabama in South Bend, potentially in snow.
Right.
I mean, right there. It's
just the jersey, the
door to your
jerseys,
doctor is gonna
football
be,
Jesus. Yeah.
The line to your doctor is going to be just in the parking lot, how long it's going to be there. Ohio State, Tennessee.
That's pretty good.
Outstanding. I mean,
Yep.
are those the two biggest stadiums we got? Two of the biggest stadiums in all of college football?
Plus, I think Tennessee, listen, they'll bring some fans there to Ohio
Certainly.
State. They'll have several thousand fans there.
And then Kurt Signetti's Hoosiers walking into the defending national champs of Georgia.
Come on.
I mean, how about that? That is some college football full mast.
Well, what about... You didn't mention
Coach
Penn State
Ursay.
and Arizona State, if that happens. Come
Penn
on.
State and Arizona
Happy
State for a
Valley.
true TV game. We got to have one
Listen,
on true TV.
Did you?
But I do like Kenny Dillingham.
Okay, so I retweeted Kelly. For people that don't know, and you shouldn't know, Kenny Dillingham, and I don't know a damn thing about him. He's the head coach at Arizona State, and this proves that you can get
Came
guys
from Oregon.
Yeah,
is that right?
It proves you can get guys that maybe aren't household names who can become really good coaches, and I think he's one of them. And I hope they win this weekend. We cannot play it because it's got so much profanity that there's no we can't even play it on the air. It would just be too many bleeps. It wouldn't make any sense. But his pump up speech before the Arizona game. Have you watched any of this?
I saw the kitty. Did he make a kitty reference?
Yeah, he did. He did.
I didn't get the full thing, but
it's just a bunch of F-bombs basically. But it's football, male hormones, football stuff that I think if you watch it, it's like 25 seconds long. You'll be like, man, I love this Kenny Dillingham guy. Plus, remember they stormed the field a couple weeks ago? Or was it last week?
Yeah,
they stormed the
he had
field.
his, wife on the field with him.
There's 50,000 people on this. Not that many, but there's thousands of people on the field. It's full, and the refs are like, "Yo, there's 1 second left or whatever." He was in the ref's face saying, "No, the game is over," telling the refs, "No, the game's over, man."
By the way, speaking of great clips, for those who have not seen the AFC North version of Hard Knocks, I think you'll really enjoy it.
Is it good? I haven't seen anything.
I think you get some good.
Okay.
Again, I am a huge fan of Hard Knocks. I know at times people have said, it's a bit overplayed, or, I mean, how good was your Giants offseason Hard Knocks, Andy?
I think it's the number. The Giants beat on Hard Knocks when they showed John Mayer, the owner of the team, saying, if Saquon Barkley goes to the Eagles, I'm going to be sick to my stomach. And
such great stuff.
But some of the Joe Shane stuff has made them look like buffoons.
Well, which is fine. For 31 other fan bases, we don't care.
Which is also true, but it's also meaning other teams are really going to fight being on it, but they're not going to have a choice in the end.
Yeah, I think people will enjoy it. So check out NFL Films on Twitter. I know when the Colts are on Hard Knocks, we send out a lot of clips from that. So if you haven't watched the full episode, pretty good on that end. All right, we finally have someone that has the gumption to take on a Mark Dykton pop quiz. Mark, who do we have?
So intimidating. His name is Tom.
Hey, Tom. Hey, Tom.
Morning.
Tom, how are you?
Cold.
Cool, calm, collected?
Absolutely.
Mark Dykton, I think you should throw some questions. This is your pop quiz. I'm looking at all the answers. I've heard of all of these people.
Yeah.
I don't know why
crazy. I'm not going crazy.
I don't know why you had to go there for number 5.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, number 5 is a little.
It's still current. It's in the year of our Lord 2024.
It is.
Answer to number 2, probably a very happy man after last Saturday, right?
I would imagine so.
All right, Tom, I'll start you off with number 1. Who currently leads the Colts in receiving yards this season?
Downs.
You sure, Tom?
I'm sorry?
You sure?
I'll give you a hint. This guy also leads the NFL in catches,
receiving yards per catch.
Receiving yards per catch.
Oh, Pierce.
There we go. You want me to do number two?
Let's go around the horn.
Number two, who leads the Colts in sacks this season? Buckner, Stewart, Pay, Latu.
Hey.
3-year, Tom. On this day 28 years ago, this former Pacer was the youngest player to ever play in an NBA game. How about Mark not even going multiple choice here?
I know. He's hardcore.
When he debuted in 1996 for the Portland Trailblazers.
Jermaine O'Neal.
Look at
that.
That's
an easy
Tom
one.
like, didn't even need it. Tom, I doubted you, and you just told me to shut the hell up.
What, you want Darvin Ham or something on there? What do you want?
Zontabach. John Edwards, former Pacer greats. All right, Mark, you're in trouble here.
This one, Tom. Tom.
Oh,
Who often uses Who often says the Packers suck drop that we play on the show?
You do.
No. Who says it though?
Yeah, whose voice is it?
Oh, God, I have no.
He's got some local ties.
Oh, Mark, a hint at 3 for 3?
I know.
Jeez.
Well, I don't know about question 5.
I actually don't know.
Packers suck.
Just give us a guess.
Take a guess.
Just take a guess.
Dockage.
Well, that was a guess.
I mean, you did ask for a guess.
We did ask for a guess. Question number
Maybe
5.
Tom's his brother. Tom Dockage.
Who has the best record in the NHL? The Winnipeg Jets, the Minnesota Wild, the Florida Panthers, or the Toronto Maple Leafs? Who's got it, Tom? Best record in the NHL.
I think I actually know this, and I don't know why. Winnipeg.
I was really hoping Tom would get that right.
I was too. Good job, Tom.
Peyton Manning to Dan Dockage would be the only one that he would have missed. I got the first 3 right. Alec Pierce.
Is correct.
Would he pay?
Yes!
All over Jermaine O'Neal.
Yeah, that's an easy one. It's Peyton Manning.
Packers suck.
That's his voice on the Packers
And Mark,
suck.
that is from one of those like 30, not
It's
30 for 30s he did. Peyton Places.
When he went to Chicago, and they wanted to break the curse of the Packers, and so it was the Fanatics from the Saturday Night Live sketch, and Peyton Manning dips his face in au jus from roast beef.
That's what it was.
And he comes out with a Ditka mustache and a bear sweater, and he screams,
Packers suck.
It's outstanding.
That's great.
Minnesota Wild for number 5.
I would not have known number 4 until I met Mark Dykton. Basically, like in the last year and a half, I learned who that was. Otherwise, I would not have known.
The greatest 2 words that Peyton Manning has ever spoke.
6:30 tonight. The Boilermakers at the Nittany Lions. First Big Ten game of the year for Matt Painter's bunch. Again, they are an underdog, 1.5 point underdog. That is FS1, Pacers, and Hoosiers in the hardwood coming up tomorrow night. Obviously, you'll get Oregon and Penn State descending upon
it's a big weekend.
The city of Indianapolis here for the Big Ten title game coming up as well. And we'll see if we get any white smoke from West Lafayette. Again, Tyson Helton, if that's your name for Purdue, Western Kentucky plays tomorrow in the Conference USA title game.
Yeah, you miss any of our show, check it out, 1075thefan.com. Back at it tomorrow. It'll be a Friday show. Have a good afternoon on The Fan.